Oh, look at this.
Is.
Woo! So this is it, huh?
This is it.
Darrell Waltrip's in our studio. Look at this.
What about that?
How you feeling? You good?
Oh, I'm great. Yeah, I feel pretty good. I stayed at the Ritz last night, and it's like a ghost town.
Yeah.
There is nobody downtown. I went to Fleming's and ate dinner by myself. There was one other couple in there. I mean, and the hotel was empty. I've never been in that place when it's empty.
Yeah.
You're a talker. When you're sitting at a table by yourself, who do you talk to? Yourself?
The waitress.
The waitress?
Yeah. We'll sit down and have a glass of wine or something, and we'll chat.
So that car right there, that Nova, I got a picture of me when I was like, I don't know, 12 years old, sitting in the car. And it's probably Darlington or Rockingham or somewhere like that. And I got a lot of other pictures on my phone of that car that raced. I got thousands and thousands of pictures of my dad I've collected over the years, and many of this car. And I didn't know that it was the same car year after year after year. Back when he raced in the Busch Series, you ran.
Yeah.
He had the same car from '84. It was a blue Wrangler car, and he ran it and he painted it good wrench at Daytona, and one Daytona with a blue chassis.
Yeah.
The Wrangler blue chassis was still there.
Yeah.
In the pictures, and then they had a Ventura nose on it. They put the Nova on there.
Yeah.
Robert Jr. put the Nova nose on it.
Yeah.
And I got pictures of the car in the shop getting the nose put on it. And they painted the chassis orange in off season at some point. When we sanded it and cleaned it, blasted it, we found the Wrangler blue paint on it. But anyhow, for like 20 years, I've seen this car in pictures at different places, getting sold at Mecum and getting going overseas to that
Goodwood.
Yeah, Goodwood.
Yeah.
Running at Goodwood. And I'm like, man, if it's over there doing that, those guys that own it must have done their homework. It might be the real deal. And so it came up for sale at the Barrett Jackson, and I called Rick. And I said, Rick, I might have to ask you to do me a favor and buy this one car that's at the auction. So I called my uncle, Robert Jr., who put the body on the car originally.
Yeah.
And I showed him some pictures of it from the internet, and I said, is this the car? Is this really the car? He goes, it's hard to tell.
Yeah.
He's like, there's only one way to really, maybe I'd be able to tell is if you got underneath it.
Yeah.
And looked at the drive shaft loop. Dad made the drive shaft loop in the shop.
Oh, my.
And because they went to the racetrack without one, and they told him when they come back, have one in it. So he handmade it out of a strap, and I remember that.
Yeah.
And so, sure enough, there's a drive shaft hoop under the car, and it's not painted. It's original, and it says on it, "Do not paint," because this was handmade by Dad, and don't whoever owned the car knew better, right, than to mess with it while they were. It's been restored 2 or 3 times. I still wasn't trusting that. If you're gonna spend that much money on something, I need more proof.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Mom was sick with cancer. We were up at her house, and just sitting there visiting her, and me and LW, my brother-in-law, I said, man, here's some pictures of this car. I wish I had more proof than just that drive shaft loop. You could bolt that on anything. And I got to that picture of me sitting in the car, and in the picture, so I'm sitting in the driver's seat, there's this radio box, and they mounted it in there crooked. And they got 2 rivets on each side of it, and one rivet's attached to this roll bar, the 8-post roll bar, and the other 2 rivets are attached to this little sheet of aluminum that goes up from the roll bar to the door top.
Yeah.
And it's in there crooked, right? And I said, LW, I bet all that paneling in there is original, and if we go down to that car, it's at my house. It was at my house next to Mama's at the time. I said, I bet if we see them pop rivet holes, that's it.
Wow.
That'll tell us. And we ran down there, and I was walking in the door thinking, it's either
This is it. This
like
is the moment
Christmas.
of truth. Well, it could be your
car,
worst.
or I wasted all this money on
Right.
it.
It could be that.
Phony.
Yeah.
And sure enough, the rivet holes were there.
I'll be damned.
Yeah. And it was like, hallelujah. So,
Did you pay a lot for it?
yes.
I figured that. If you bought it at Barrett Jackson, you did. Yeah.
And so Rick, I was like, I'd already bought the car. I was so thankful that it was the right thing, and we ended up restoring it in over there. Robert G. Jr.
Oh, I
put
know.
the body back on it.
Yeah.
Well, tell
Same-
him about the hammer marks too.
Yeah, but Daddy beat the floorboard out of all his cars.
Did you know that?
Oh yeah.
Putting the
He
seat
beat
down.
the hell out of the seat. That's
Yeah,
all.
he cut the bottoms
That's how
off the
we
seat.
adjusted everything. You had to get a butler seat, and then you'd just start banging on it and beating on it till you got it kind of where it fit you. You didn't have those molds like they had the day you set. No, we had to beat the hell out of them.
Yeah.
And in the race, sometimes you'd get them all bowed out like you want them. Of course, he had to be able to lay down in there.
Right.
He had that seat like a little rat hole right in the middle of it where he set his butt.
Yeah, he would cut the bottom out of his seats.
Oh, yeah.
and put
He
the
was
pad.
terrible.
He put the pad on the floor of the car. No hole. He said the seat wasn't holding you in; the belts were.
That's right. Well, look, I don't have to tell you. He had a theory about everything.
Oh, he did.
It didn't matter what it was. He had a theory about it.
So, anyways, Darrell, thanks for coming all this way. You
Oh,
said you stayed in a hotel by yourself. So you're doing all this just to be here for us today.
Yeah.
I'm sure you're coming through town seeing some old friends too. So that makes me feel a little bit better. You coming all this way.
No, I watch your show quite often. You've had some of my best, Kenny Schrader, and of course you had Hank Jr. on the other day, and you've had Kyle. You had a lot of fun people, and I watch, and because I like to see what they're doing.
Yep.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
I'm in Tennessee and everybody's over here, and so I'm not in the loop so much like I once was. So I like to know what everybody's doing. So it's fun to be here, man. I'm excited about it.
You said you're in Tennessee. Where are you at?
I live in Franklin, Tennessee. I got married in '69, so Stevie and I have been married 51 years, and we moved down to Tennessee right after I got married and started driving for PB Crowell. I think you remember Chubby, his son, and we built. We had cars that he bought all his cars from Bobby Allison. So that's how I got to be friends with Bobby Allison. And I started racing at the fairgrounds, and I won everything. I won. Matter of fact, the first Cup race I won was at the fairgrounds. So I moved there in 1970. Been there ever since. In the car business, got 5 car dealerships there, and
Wow, 5 car dealerships.
yeah. We have Honda, Volvo, Subaru, Buick, and GMC.
If you had all them car dealerships, why was you in broadcasting so long?
because I loved it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
One thing, even today, and I guess I was fortunate when you think about it, because I wouldn't have been good with this COVID thing, because I never liked to watch the monitor.
Oh.
For 19 years, they stayed on me all the time, like, watch the monitor, watch the monitor. People at home don't know what you're talking about. I said, I don't care if they know what I'm talking about.
Man.
I want a camera over here. I want a camera over there. And so it was, it would have been hard for me to be in the studio and do the races, because I got to see it, I got to smell it, I got to feel it, I got to touch it.
He's
I got
the
to
same
hear
way.
it. Yeah, I know you're the same way. You're
Yeah.
that way.
Yeah, I've just luckily for us, the way the booth works for us is I've always felt like that if I thought something was interesting that I saw out the window, I just start talking about it and they're gonna put a camera on.
Oh yeah, that's
You
the
know
way
what
I
I mean?
was. Yeah, same way.
And so and our producer allows us to sort of steer the camera to wherever we want. Like, this is a great battle getting ready to happen. Let's go there. So when you were working in the sport, you didn't live in Tennessee. When you're driving race cars in the Cup Series all those years, you didn't live in Tennessee. You were here, right? You were in Charlotte.
Well, this was my second home.
Right.
I met Robert G., your grandfather. Jake Elder brought my Mercury, my 71 Mercury over here for Robert to fix the side in.
What happened to the side?
Well, I got in a wreck in the Daytona 500, and Marty Robbins raked down the side of my car and pushed the whole side of it in. And I finished the race. I don't remember where I finished,
Yeah.
but anyway. So when the race over with, and Jake lives in Charlotte, and he had worked at Home and Moody, he had worked for the Petties, and he worked for Hudson and Pagan, so Jake knew everybody, and he said, we're going to take this car back to Charlotte, and I'll get Robert G. to fix it. I said, all right. What's his last name? That is his last name. Okay, well, so we go. So I've never been to Charlotte before. So they bring the car over here, and I come over here, and and like Charlotte Motor Speedway seemed like it was way out in the country back in the day. It took, land the airport.
It was.
Took forever to get out there, but we finally got out there. We stopped by Omo Langley's shop on the way because we had to pick up a gear, and I don't know, we did a bunch of stuff. So we get to Robert's shop, and this little shop behind his house, and there's damn wrecked cars everywhere, mostly Dodges. And we go down to the driveway into the shop, and Robert, he's a big guy with his eyes, man, a cigarette hanging with ashes hanging off of it, and Robert's welding it. He's going, I said, we got to get my car out of here. He said, "What's wrong?" I said, "That man can't even weld. He doesn't know how to weld." Because I'd never seen a wire welder before. I thought you had to hit an arc, and run a bead,
That's funny.
He said, calm down. It's going to be fine. And so Robert and I, became great friends. I kept my cars there.
The Mercury you're talking about, is that that car? Is that the car that Mario Andretti won a Daytona 500 with?
I had no idea when I bought that car. I bought it from Holman and Moody. It was a 69 Mercury when I bought it. It had been a 67 Fairlane, then a 69 Mercury, then I turned it into a 71 Mercury. And that's kind of the way chassis were back in the day. You didn't throw them away. You just updated them. So we were working on that car one day.
Was it a frame from front to?
Yeah. I mean, it was a whole car. I bought it was a guy named.
How did you update cars back then? Because they had a lot of. I mean, it was a stock shell on top of the chassis.
You just cut the sheet metal off of them, and you'd put another set of sheet metal on them.
Wow.
I mean, that thing started off brand new as a 67 Fairlane, then of course it became a 69 Mercury. And Ralph Stomlin, Bill France Sr., he liked to bring those kind of road racing guys over, and this car ran at Talladega. That's the last time it had been raced. It sat on the front row, I think. Anyway, I bought the car, and we're working on it one day in the shop. It's way back in the day,
Who did you buy it from?
I bought the car from Holman and Booty.
Yeah, you just walk over there, and I'm interested in buying a car.
Oh, they wanted to sell it. It was for sale, and they wanted. I got the car with the engine in it, brand new engine, 427 tunnel port, a spare engine. I didn't really know why I needed a spare engine, but after a little while, I figured it out. They don't last very long, and some tires and wheels and so forth. The first race I went to Talladega. That was my first race. And everybody said, "Why do you go to Talladega?" I said, "Well, that's when we got the car done." So I had the car at Hudson Pagan. That's how I met Jake. And Jake was working on the car, and he was up on the dash ground, and he said, hey, come over here. He said, "You know what car, you know where this car came from?" I said, "I got it from Holman Moody." "Why?" He said, "This is Mario's car."
How did he know?
It had a tag under the dash on the firewall under the dash that had serial numbers on it, and Jake had worked on that car. And that's how he knew that was the chassis.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously,
a lot changed.
It went through a lot of changes.
Yeah, the body, no.
Wow.
I was kind of happy because, I said, man, I got Mario Andretti's car. And Mario was he was one of my heroes back in the day, he and AJ. But anyway, go to Talladega, the first race I go to, got this 71 Mercury. It's been over Hudson Pagan. I'm ready to go. Man, I don't know what I'm doing, but I'm at Talladega, and I got this Maxwell House coffee truck that my father-in-law bought from a Oldsmobile dealer in Owensboro.
Big box truck?
Yeah, big old box truck, international. It'd wear you out just driving it. Got a trailer, got the car. I meet Jake at Talladega. We unload the car. We go open up the back door, and he looks in there and he says, where's your tools? Where's your equipment? I'd been to Western Auto. This is no lie. There's Western Auto in Owensboro. I'd been to Western Auto. I'd bought me a little toolbox, and I had some 9/16 wrench and some, some wire, but some pliers and some screwdrivers.
A couple wrenches, yeah.
And that's all I had. I didn't have jack stands. I didn't have air wrenches. I didn't have anything. And Jake, I thought he was going to die. I thought he was going to turn around and go home, which later on he did.
That kind of was his thing, right?
I didn't know what I was doing. I mean, I was ready to go. That's what I had at the fairgrounds. It worked all right there. Why wouldn't it be okay for Talladega? It wasn't. So I ended up having to buy air wrenches.
Oh, man.
I had to rent air tanks. I had to buy some I had to go out and buy some I didn't have money. See, that's one of the things that was kind of weird about my career. When I first started, everybody thought, because my wife, Stevie, her father-in-law was the president of Texas Gas. So everybody.
Really?
Yeah. Everybody assumed I had a lot of money. So they thought I'd come in, I'm a rich kid, I didn't have two nickels to rub together. I'd pay Jake and Robert and them on Friday and borrow it back from them on Monday. That's how broke I was.
Yeah.
So anyway, I didn't have a lot of money to spend, but somehow, some way, we managed to make it.
Where do you go buy and rent all this stuff at last minute like that? Like, how do you?
Just different,
There's park trucks at the track.
Yeah,
is that what you did?
Yeah, there's stuff there. Mr. Hurd.
Back in the day, there were parts trucks that would park in the garage. I mean, 2 or 3 retailers, basically like a anything you need.
Yeah.
Papa Stone, Hudson Pagan, Butch Stevens,
if that truck didn't have it, the one next door did, and they would sit there and retail sell everything you could need.
Sure.
If somebody wanted it, or needed it at the racetrack, it was in one of them parts trucks.
Oh yeah, it's so different. I hate. He knows because he was there a little bit, but the sport is so different today than it was then. I mean, it was just a few guys. It was a hobby. It was almost like a hobby. It wasn't a business like it is today.
How'd you do in that race? Your first race?
Well, it's kind of funny because Jake was notorious for cheating. And I didn't know that. I mean, I like Jake, but I didn't know that. We led that race. Me and James Hilton had a heck of a battle. And I'll never forget, I came in the pits, and I had this ragtag bunch of kids from –
You had to rent them too?
Yeah, they all came up from Nashville.
Oh, really?
In the race, so they didn't know. They'd only ever worked on the car in Nashville. The first pit stop we make, or somewhere in there in the race, I said, I got to be cheating. There's got to be something going on. 'Cause I passed Richard Petty, Buddy Baker, by passing all these guys, and I'm fighting with James Hilton for the lead of the race. Well, I didn't know we had old tires. The tires came with the car. The last time it was run was at Talladega, so it had these old slick tires like that's what they had there to start with. And Goodyear had come this time with a brand new treaded tire. Oh. Well, those treaded tires would run 10 laps and just tear all to pieces. So all these fast guys were having tire problems. Well, I wouldn't have any tire problems. So I came down pit road and I stopped, and we made a pit stop. And in my mind, I'm thinking, I know we're cheating, boy. I'm going to be in big trouble right from the get-go.
You're thinking that?
I really was, because how am I? I don't even know what I'm doing. I'm leading the race, And I'm up
passing Richard Petty.
I just went by Richard Petty. So I come into pits, and I make a pit stop, and I'm going down pit road, and everybody's pointing at me. I said, yep, they all know it. They know we're cheating. I didn't know that the jack was hung under the car. When they pitted the car and didn't let the jack all the way down, it got hung up under the car, and I'm going down pit road with the jack hung up under the side of my car, and I thought they were saying, oh, he's cheating like hell. But no, they were just pointing at that jack. Hey, man, you got a jack under your car. And that was a brand new jack. I think I paid $200 for it.
He knows what it costs. You just bought it.
Yeah. But anyway, that was my first race. I could have won that race. You know what? I always think about, what if I'd have won that race?
Your first one.
Here I am, first race I've ever been to. I'm a rookie. You think I was obnoxious before that race? What would I have been like after? If I'd have won that first race, I don't know what they would have done.
They would not have been able to deal with you.
No, they wouldn't.
They have no idea what they were about to get.
Jaws would have surfaced much earlier than his career.
Jaws would have been a goldfish at that point. They only know what kind of shark they were going to get, right?
But those first few years were amazing. I look back on them, I said, how in the heck did I survive? How did I make it? I don't know. It just blows my mind sometimes thinking about how lucky your dad and I mean, we were buddies, and he's racing dirt cars at, Concord. And I'm trying to keep a car together to go to the next race. And I got Ray Fox Jr. and Robert G. and Larry Reagan. I got all the guys from the 71 team, when they closed the doors over there, Harry Hyde, they came to work for us. They came to work for me. And so I had a really good bunch of guys.
Did you know it? Did you know how good they were then?
No.
You're talking about legendary names now.
They're just guys, I didn't know.
Harry Hyde, yeah. Oh, man.
Well, Harry Hyde was from Louisville, Kentucky, and I knew who the Harry was. He and I were kind of buddies. I always said, if I got in trouble and I had to go to court, I want Harry to be my attorney, because he could talk his way in and out of anything.
Could he?
Oh, he was great. I loved Harry.
The car that we're talking about, I'm a big Jimmy Means fan. And
yeah.
In my, in collecting photos of Jimmy over the years, there's a picture of you and him with your Mercury T-boned at Daytona in his 300 miler. Yeah. What happened there?
Well, that was the last time I ran that car.
Right.
And
you were there running a cup race in another car.
Yeah, I was driving for Dygard, I think, at the time, yeah.
And you still had that Mercury and pedaling with it.
I had what was left of it, yeah. When I hit Jimmy, it pretty well wiped it out. But anyway, and what was funny is Jimmy's from Alabama, and
y'all knew each other.
Something about Tennessee and Alabama. There's just some rivalry there that we just could never seem to get over. But anyway, I knew Jimmy from racing at BIR and Huntsville and different places. And he swore, and he was mad at me. He might still be mad at me, I don't know, that I hit him on purpose. He swore that, he got sideways in front of me and I T-boned him. What am I going to do? I got no, I did the best I could. And he was mad at me he may still be mad at me. I don't know. He
thought you T-boned him on purpose?
He thought I did it on purpose. I said, well, I'm going to tear my car all to hell. just to hit you on the side of the door. He said, well, you were trying to kill me. I said, no, I really wasn't. It was an accident. I promise.
That's wild.
Well,
I know.
That sounds like there was some animosity there, more than just a Tennessee-Alabama thing, right? Or did
Well,
you guys...
I don't know if this has anything to do with it, but DW was winning the track title at Nashville, and then when DW went on from the fairgrounds, Jimmy won the title the next season.
Yeah.
And the 1974 Winston Racing Series Championship.
Yeah, somewhere back in there. I won the track championship in 70. It was an abbreviated season.
Yeah.
And then I won again in 73. I drove R.C. Alexander's.
Yeah.
Mike Alexander.
So this Mercury, you crash it. That's the last race it runs.
Yeah.
How does it end up being restored and back in your hands today?
Yeah.
I love the way cars do this. How does that car? Where does it go?
Yeah. So we take the car home and because it just killed it from the firewall forward. I mean, it was done. It was dead. And so we took it home and we took everything off of that car, oil tank, spindle, anything that we could salvage. And that's how we built the Camaro. The little Camaro I have that we won the modified race at Daytona in 78, we took everything off the Mercury and put it on the Camaro. The rear end, housing, and just things that we could salvage. We took the body from the firewall back and put it out behind Robert's house and covered it up with a tarp. Well, that's where it sat forever. And then Hugo came through.
Wow.
And Hugo came through and blew a tree down onto the Mercury.
Oh.
So there it sits with a tree laying on top of it, and Robert calls me, he says, Darrell Lee, he always called me Darrell Lee. He said, Darrell Lee, I'm taking this car to the dump. I said, what? You can't do that, Robert. He said, it's killed. It's no good. You don't want it. I said, all right, I'm going to come over. I'm going to check it out. So I went over. We get the tree off of it, and I had a shop at the time at the Charlotte Motor Speedway in the Goodyear buildings up there. That's where my little bush shop was.
Wow.
And so I took the car up there, what was left of it, and I said, someday I'm going to find somebody, sorry to say this, dumb enough to fix this thing. And sure enough, what was that kid's name that worked for Joe Ruttman, his crew chief, and guy hung with him a lot. Anyway, he came by one day and he said, what are you going to do with that old body? I said, I want to fix it up. He said, I'll fix it for you. So he took the car, he took what was left of it, took it to his shop. He bought a cadaver car from California and brought it home and put all the kind of parts from that car onto that body, fixed it. James Hilton, who was a great friend of mine, he helped me he put the 429 motor in it. Kenny, whatever his name was at Home and Moody, he built me a set of stainless steel headers for it because he still had all the templates. So slowly but surely, I got the car put back together, and today I have it. It's got a 429 Hemi in it, which are kind of rare, and it's an amazing car to have.
Yeah, that's crazy. So you just talked about the Camaro. This Camaro, I talk to people all the time about Robert G.
Oh yeah,
and how good a body man he was.
Oh yeah,
and how creative he was. And so one of my favorite things to sort of tell people about that he did was with that Camaro, the front fenders.
Oh yeah,
made them out of Volkswagen fenders.
Oh yeah.
Did you see that happen?
Oh yeah. Well, so Robert's a perfectionist, and Robert was the funniest man I ever knew in my life. I mean, he could be dead damn serious and crack you up.
Really?
He's just that southern Virginia, South Hill, Virginia accent he had, going to Hills and going to the bed, and let's cook a steak, and he loved Crown Royal. He kept all of his really important stuff in those little blue bags. You know, he kept all the watches and rings and anything he had collected.
Oh, in the bank money bag.
Yeah, man. Yeah, that was why he kept everything in those blue bags. You know,
he thought it was good enough for the bank.
Oh yeah, we've been there working away. Look, we've been there working away on the car, and he'd say, "Well, Darrell Lee, time for us to eat dinner." And he said, "I'm gonna cook a steak. You go up to Concord and get me a fifth of Crown Royal." And I'd come back and we'd drink Crown Royal and cook steaks and work on cars all night.
Best steak you'll eat.
Oh man,
I've heard that.
He would sit there on the grill while it's cooking and just drizzle Worcestershire sauce on them.
Oh yeah,
just little at a time, and it would seep into that meat, man. It was so damn good.
Yeah,
Tony
it was.
Jr. is the one that first told me about his steaks, which I guess were legendary. Like apparently he cooked a million of them too.
Oh, yeah.
Oh yeah, I mean that's what you ate when you went over there.
Every
steak.
night.
I'd eat for breakfast or dinner, whatever. He
fascinating.
would work all night and sleep all day. I mean, you'd have to. He kind of remind me of Dale Jr. when he comes to that,
It's in the blood, I guess.
I guess.
Yeah, but the Volkswagen fenders. So
Yeah.
it's crazy to think that I mean you needed clearance, you needed tire clearance.
Oh, yeah.
This thing was
Yeah.
So how did he?
So
How did that come
it's
up?
2 a.m. That was his working hours. Probably from about 8 to 2 or 3 in the morning. He called me at 2:00 in the morning. He said, and he would he might have been a little high. I don't know. He says, Darrell Lee, I figured it out. I said, what did you figure out, Robert? I figured out I went to the junkyard. I bought some Volkswagen fenders, and wait till you see this car. Wait till you see what I've done with these fenders. And so he had built fabricated stuff to go, because the car sit real low and the tires were higher.
Yeah.
The tires were actually higher than the motor.
Yes.
So the way the body was put on the car and everything. So you had to have these big fenders.
Right.
And he had to, it had to be, and see, he had worked for Harry Hyde, so they knew quite a bit about aerodynamics at that time. Wow. And so he called me. Look at that. And he called me that night at 2 a.m. He said, I finally figured it out. I got me some Volkswagen fenders, and I put those on there, and they are perfect.
That is
I bet in your
amazing.
mind you're like, what the hell are you talking about?
Right.
I don't feel good about this, but
Your imagination would have never been
I
able
don't feel
to.
too good about
Right.
this, but I'll take your word for it, because I knew he was so good. He was absolutely the best.
That looks amazing.
I couldn't believe
The
it.
craftsmanship.
Yeah,
But
when
you know who else is pretty good? His son.
I know he's the one that told me about them fenders, and I'm like, how do you think in your mind? You know what would work is some Volkswagen fenders.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
But you know what's funny about that car? So I paid for everything on that car. We spent about $25,000. I got a motor from Junior Johnson, and so I felt like it was my car. But when Robert passed, they had an auction at his garage, and they were going to auction off the car. I called his daughter and I said, "Hey, you can't auction off that car. It's mine." She said, "Well, do you have a bill of sale?" I said, "No, I don't have a bill of sale."
You bought it.
I said,
You paid
she said, "You got a canceled check?" I said, "I don't have anything." I said, "But I paid for all that." I said, "Robert built it, but I paid for it." She said, "If you don't have any proof of you own it, we're selling it at the auction." So I said, "Okay, great." So I go to the auction. It's over at Robert's house.
Oh, yeah.
And I said, the car comes up for bid. And I bid $2,500 because it wasn't all it wasn't together. It was a lot of pieces and parts. You had to put it back together. So I bid $2,500. Somebody bet $3,000. Where'd that come from? I bet $3,500. And somebody said $4,000. I look around, it's Butch Stevens, because Butch had helped work on that car too. So I went over and I grabbed Butch by arm and said, "Look, Butch, we can jack this thing up to $10,000 if that's what it takes. I'm going to buy this car. So you can," because we were kind of buddies. I said, "You can either bail or you can jack the price up to unreasonable. But I'm going to buy
you're not
this
losing.
car. I'm going to buy this car." So I ended up buying the car for $4,000.
Wow.
And then I had to put it all together. I had to buy a motor for it, and all the stuff was in the little garage behind, little storage room behind Robert's house, the headers and pieces and parts that went to the car. But I had to buy it back at the auction.
Well, yeah, but I understand. Now, do you still own it? You still have it?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, we got it at the shop.
Oh, man.
Yeah. All the cars I have, Ray Everham, that's the only one he ever said, "If you ever want to sell that car, I'll buy it."
So cool.
Yeah. Because we took it to Daytona. We were the only one there with a Camaro that first year.
Yeah.
They ran the modifieds on the big track. They've been running them on the road course. So they ran the modifieds on the big track, and we built that Camaro, and we got there, and everybody said, "Are you kidding me? Whoever thought about running a Camaro like that in a modified race?" Well, we did, and we won it, and that made that car very famous.
Yes.
Everybody copied it.
Yeah. Yeah, the next year,
There was
Richie Evans
Richie,
had one, and Richie won the race.
Yeah.
Because Robert went down to Banjo's. Banjo built Richie a car, and Robert went down to Banjo's and helped put the body and fix the car for
Oh,
him.
so Robert built his too.
Oh, yeah, he built the fenders for it, yeah. Robert was special.
Yeah.
Special.
So talk about Robert's dirt track car. Well, you ran it also at the Snowball.
Yeah.
Camaro.
Yeah.
One thing that I've always wondered, again, collecting all these photos, trying to put all this stuff in order as far as what happened first. When I'm looking at this 17 car that Granddaddy owned, that he ran at Metrolina.
Yeah.
You drove it at the Snowball Derby.
Yeah.
Haywood Plyler drove it.
Yeah.
After you and Daddy, but when were you driving it and when was Daddy driving it? Because it kind of looks like the same car, almost in the same year. But you know, talk about driving his little short track car that he ran around.
Oh yeah,
and pull up the pictures.
Yeah. So we took the car. Dale would run it on dirt on Friday night. And I'd run it on asphalt on Sunday.
The same weekend.
The same car. Yeah. Dale didn't tear it up. You know, it's pretty bad.
Yeah.
Dale was pretty bad about knocking. I got to tell you this story. So Robert built this really
DW
brand new car.
Snowball Derby.
Yeah. So Robert built this car, and it was really a pretty little car, a little Camaro.
Yeah.
And I went in a shop, but the nose was a little higher than normal. Yes. It wasn't down on the ground like it's supposed to be. And I said, Robert, ain't that nose up there a little high? He said, don't worry, Dale will race it down.
Wow.
I let Dale take one of my. I had a brand new little Nova.
That's at the Snowball. That's DW right there.
Yeah.
Look at you.
Working on it.
Oh, wait.
And now I know the inspiration for that side panel there.
Oh yeah. So I let Dale take my little Nova to Nashville. When I met Dale, he was racing dirt tracks, and we would sit and drink Jack Daniels, and he'd say, I got to get off these dirt tracks. I ain't never going to be anybody if I don't get off these dirt tracks. You got to help me. And of course, at the time, I was a little bit better off than he was, but not a lot.
That's the car he's talking
Yeah, that's the car. So I said, I tell you what. So time went by, and I said I had this little car I needed to finish. It wasn't all together, wasn't finished. I said, I tell you what, Dale, if you'll finish that car, you can take it to Nashville and race it. Because Dale was a good mechanic. I mean, he was good at working on cars. So he and Big Cruz and, I don't know, 2 or 3 of his buddies, Hargett and a whole bunch of them, they all got in on that car, and they all fixed that car, and they got it ready to go, and they took it to Nashville. Mm. So Monday morning, I said, well, I wonder what happened. I never heard anything about how he did or anything. Monday morning, I'm at home, and I get my phone call from about 5 different drivers from Nashville. And they said, if you ever let him drive one of your cars again, we're going to come and whip your ass. Because he proceeded to bring my car back in a basket.
Right.
Dale was, so what I loved about Dale, and what I loved and it's kind of love-hate thing about Dale, Dale could do anything with a car. I mean, he could get it out of shape. He could put it in a hole. He had such great car control. He learned that from racing on dirt, all that dirt track racing that he did. But he would do things sometimes that would absolutely make you, tick you off. What the hell were you thinking? Yeah. And of course, he'd had that little grin, that he always had. And he said, well, guy was in my way, and I need to move him, and he wouldn't get out of the way, and so I had to move him forward. I had to help him out. Yeah.
I'm assuming, is this around 1970 that?
In the 70s. Yeah.
It was in the 70s.
Yeah.
Right. Because he was running dirt, and then eventually he made it to pavement, and I'm assuming that's when Ralph, probably around the time he passed away.
Yeah, it was right after.
So I think that was around 72, I believe.
Yeah, Ralph passed away, and then I'll never. Again, it's another story. But Johnny Ray from Talladega. Oh, look at that little car!
It's a beautiful car. We're just sitting here sharing pictures for all the podcast listeners right now.
That car could race today.
It's beautiful.
I know. And by the way,
look at you with your hand hanging out the window like you're on the first Sunday drive.
I'm cool, yeah.
Yeah, you were cool.
I learned that at the Dairy Drive-In. Hang that arm out the window and kind of, We had those drive-through drive-ins back in the day. I had a 53 Ford flathead. I'd pull the choke. I had a hand choke. I'd pull the choke and they go, yeah. And I go through the Dairy Drive. Hey, how you doing?
So you and Dad would sort of drive. You and Dad both were driving for Robert. You were, y'all were also doing other things, but Robert's little car that he kept in his shop, that he went and ran the dirt tracks and asphalt tracks, the little short track races all over the country or all over the Southeast. You're pedaling with that a little bit, having some fun, and trying to get your Cup career where your Cup career is started. You're running in the Cup Series. Talk about moving from driving your own car, your little Mercury, and getting that opportunity to race for Bud Moore.
Yeah.
In the 15.
Yeah, well, I was 73, and I mean, I guess people in the sport could tell that, you know, if I had a good car, I could drive. Mm-hmm. I mean, it wasn't a matter of he's an okay driver. It's just, you know, I took that Mercury, I took everything that I got in, and I made it competitive. I drove Junie Dunleavy's car. I ran up front. I drove the Dygaard car. Ran up front. So everybody could tell. This was in '73. Everybody could tell if he had a good car, he'd probably be pretty special.
Yeah.
So Bobby Isaac was driving for Bud Moore, and Bobby
quit.
Got out of the car at Talladega. Said he heard a voice.
That's right.
Said something told him that after I drove for Bud Moore. I know where the voice came from, by the way. Wasn't any doubt about that.
It was Bud Moore.
It was Bud Moore.
That was the voice that get out of the car.
Voice.
That's a legendary story. Real quick, and for those that don't know, Bobby Isaac's in the race. Is he leading?
He may have been.
And he said
that's the tale is that he had a big lead.
But didn't somebody crash in that race that
who didn't crash?
Everybody.
That's right. Race. We had 54 cars sometime.
But did somebody die?
May have been Tiny Lund. I don't know. It could have been. It was along that period of time.
Yeah.
But anyway, he said he heard a voice
during the race.
Yeah,
yes.
And he just got out and parked it.
And never raced again?
Well, he raced at Hickory. I think that's where he had a heart attack at Hickory.
So you were the So the Bud Moore ride, you were the next driver.
Bud and I were buddies. I was friends with everybody. You know, I had to. Back in the day, you had to be friends with everybody because you had to borrow something.
But this is a big deal. Like Buddy's car was a competitive ride.
Yeah.
You know, this is a big deal for you.
Yeah. Well, here was what I kind of figured out as time goes by. Bud was running a 351 small block against.
Yeah.
God only knows how big those motors were.
Yeah.
I mean, they were racing against Hemis and 427s, and they were restricted to try to make the small block competitive. And at some tracks, that car may have had a slight advantage, but not at all the tracks. But I didn't know that. Hell, I'm supposed to win every race. That's all I know. That's a winning car. That's a winning car owner. Mm-hmm. I'm supposed to win every race. So, but anyway, Bud called me, and it was kind of hard because it was 73, and I was just getting my act together, and I had Jake and I had Robert. I had a lot of stuff at their shop, at Robert's shop, and Bud wanted me to drive his car, and I thought, man, I don't know. Do I want my name on the front of the check or do I want my name on the back of the check? I couldn't make up my mind, but I figured the back was a lot better than the front. So I went and drove his car for 8 or 10 races, and I wrecked every week.
You did?
I don't think
it didn't go good.
It didn't go well at all. I went to Darlington. I think I could qualify really well. Qualified front row at Richmond, wrecked, caused a big crash, big fire. Went to Darlington.
Why would you reckon? Was it you or was it the car handful? Or?
Way over my head.
Really?
I just didn't have I didn't know. You know, when you're a rookie, you don't know what you don't know. Well, if I didn't realize that I had a small motor, they had a big motor, and they probably were better than me. But if Bobby Allison ran at Richmond, for instance, if he ran a 18 flat, I was supposed to run a 1790, you know, and so that's kind of how I approached it, and I went at it all wrong. And Bud and I were really, I liked Bud a lot. We were good friends, and I was going to drive for him in '74, but George Former came along, and he had some money, and I didn't have any money, and Bud said, look, I got to go with the money. I got to go with the RC Cola deal, and so I was back to my car.
So, yeah, and that didn't work out too well for Bud either.
No, it didn't.
No.
Maybe the voice knew what was coming.
I think
Maybe the voice actually knew a lot more about this situation than anybody else did. Maybe.
Hey, Bud was a piece of work. Now, I went to Darlington. The first time I drove his car, the Southern 500, and it's hot. Oh, it must have been 120 degrees. And tongue, he said, let me tell you something, boy. Don't go in that third turn, which is the first turn now. He said, don't go in that third turn on the outside of anybody. You just fall in line, get behind us. Don't go in that turn on the outside of nobody. I said, okay, I won't. And so we start the race. I think I started fourth. Bobby was here. I was on the outside. We go down the back straightaway, and I'm side by side with Bobby. I said, surely he'll let me in because we're kind of buddies, not great buddies, but kind of buddies. I said, he'll back off. He'll let me in. He'll back off. He'll let me. He didn't back off. He didn't let me in. First damn lap, I'm up against tore the whole right side out of the car on the first lap of the race.
After you had been told.
And it went way south after that. It wasn't a good day at all.
So what happens after you're done driving Bud's car? You get back in. You got your own car. You keep running it, right? You win Nashville, your first race. When was that? 74, 75?
75.
75?
Yeah.
So how did you win that race? How did that happen?
Well,
I mean, I know you're good there.
Yeah. Well, I always figured if you can't win, that's my home track.
Nashville Fairgrounds.
So I don't care what kind of car you're racing there. I ran a USAC race there, and I won it. ASA, I'd won everything. So if you can't win at your own track, how are you ever going to win anywhere else? And ironically, Cale Yarborough had the best car. I mean, Cale was short.
What car are you driving? Where'd you get this car?
We built it. It was a Hudson Pagan
Brand
car.
new.
Yeah, I'd say it was probably a new car.
Robert G put the body on it.
Robert did all the work on it.
In the Victory Lane photo, you talked about a guy named Darrell Cruz.
Yeah, Big Cruz.
He's in there with you.
Yeah.
Your brother Michael's in there.
Yeah, he's standing down the left front corner down there, curly
Michael.
hair,
Are you looking at
No.
it?
I just remember it by
Yeah, but that was my first one. And why it was so special, it was on Mother's Day weekend, and it was at Nashville, and so a lot of my friends, and I'm a local hero, so
right.
I beat all the big guns come to town, I beat them, and so that made me even a bigger hero. But what was special about that race, my grandmother, and she's in that picture, Granny and Pappy, they were the first race I ever went to when I was 6 years old. I went with my grandmother, and I sat in the grandstand with her, and she was a pistol. She reminded me of a little banty rooster. She about 5 foot tall, smoke a cigarette and drink a cup of coffee, and cuss like a sailor. I grew up. It's a wonder my language is as good as it is, because I grew up around
some cussers.
In the garage.
Oh yeah.
I mean, there's a language in the garage that probably wouldn't use anywhere else, and my grandmother and all they cuss like sailors, and they could hyphenate any word. It's just amazing.
Yeah, that's a talent.
Yeah.
And so you won that race at Nashville Fairgrounds. Humor me for a second, because Dale Jr. is basically probably the biggest advocate that I know of trying to get a return to Nashville Fairgrounds. So tell me real quick. Oh yeah, there's the picture.
Michael, right?
Yeah.
Look at and Granny's wearing the purple.
Yeah.
Is that Granny in the purple?
Robert G.
Yeah. You stand up there. Just
turn it around where DW can see.
Yeah. That's right behind Michael is my grandmother and my grandfather. And my grandfather was a deputy sheriff in Owensboro, and my grandmother and my grandfather really kept me out of jail a lot.
And so she's probably being profane at some sort right there in that picture, right?
She's probably cussing somebody. That's what my grandfather told me when I was 6 years old. He called my mom. He said, "Can DW go to the race with Granny?" And Mom said, "Well, why does he? I don't know if he. Why? What do you want him to go to the race for?" He said, "Every week Granny gets in a fight with somebody, and maybe if he goes along, he can keep her out of trouble." Well, that's where I met G.C. Spencer. And that's how I was a big G.C. Spencer fan. Like, he likes Jimmy Means. I like G.C. Spencer. Yeah. And had the flying saucer, and I loved that car. And I failed at my job, though. I was supposed to keep my grandmother out of trouble. And
never did. No. But what was it about Nashville Fairgrounds for those of us that never got to watch races there? Is it, he's such a big advocate for it. Describe Nashville Fairgrounds driving there, in a simple way.
Yeah, I think what Nashville, it's a lot like maybe Richmond is today. It's fast. It's a pretty fast racetrack. You have to have some skill to get around there. And I think those combination of those pretty long straightaways and pretty sweeping turns, I always felt like if you could win there, you could win anywhere.
Is that right?
It's just that kind of a hybrid racetrack. It's a little bit of this, a little bit of that, and you had to handle, you had to do this, you had to do that, and you had to know how to get around that joint.
So when you win your first cup race in the NASCAR circuit, I mean, that's a dream.
Oh, yeah.
Things were so different back then. It was such a different sport. It wasn't this sort of national sport. It was really regional and all, but still, this is your dream come true.
Yeah.
Are you feeling that while you're sitting in Victory Lane in that picture? You're sitting on the hood of that car.
Yeah.
Are you thinking in your mind, I can't believe I just beat Cale Yarborough, Bobby Allison, Richard Petty? I am at my home track. This is comfortable. This is my couch.
Yeah.
But
I did
you think, man, I made it?
Oh no,
No?
no, I didn't think that at all. Not at that point. I think what that did for me, it gave me some confidence that I could. I thought I could.
Yeah.
I thought if things worked out, I could win. I could win a Cup race. I could win in the Cup Series. What I was most proud of is that was my car. It was my team. You know, you see Jake, you see Robert, you see all my guys. Yeah, terminal
side
transport.
of the car.
My sponsor,
Terminal
my
transport.
car. I come into this circus, you know, and I had no idea what I was getting into, and so when I finally was able to win with my own stuff, I think I was prouder of that than I was the accomplishment.
What's terminal transport?
Well, at the time, terminal transport was those big brown trucks ran up and down the highway, commercial carriers. They hauled all the new cars out of Detroit.
Yeah.
They were owned by my father-in-law's company, Texas Gas.
Oh,
and
there you
so
go.
Is that the same thing that was terminal trucking?
No, that's different.
That's completely different.
Yeah, that's Rich Bickle and that crowd. They were terminal. That was a whole different crowd. This was a big company. They were out over near Atlanta, somewhere over there.
Okay.
I can't remember where. That's where the headquarters was, and they, like I said, they hauled all those new cars out of Detroit on they were called commercial carriers, and they were the brown trucks that ran up and down the road. You know why they paint them brown? Because you can't tell when they're dirty.
Oh well,
And they made me the first couple of cars I had, they were brown.
Yeah.
They were ugly.
That
Ugly.
Mercury
and
was
you
brown.
remember this car? Of course you do. You're Rain Man when it comes to cars. The one you're talking about with the terminal truck, his first win.
Yeah, his first win.
Yeah.
The orange and white car.
Look at that body. Look at that Robert G. body.
Is that not amazing?
It's the prettiest car. When you showed up to Daytona, that's at Daytona. When you showed up to Daytona with that car right there,
Yeah.
I mean, they didn't have best appearing cars back then, but
Oh, yeah.
did everybody in the garage walk by that thing?
Oh, yeah.
When you was standing in
Well,
your garage stall?
Everybody knew Robert, so
Yeah.
everybody knew he was going to have a nice car. But I tell my guys all the time, we got a lot of reasons to not be good, but we ain't got no reason for not look good.
Yeah.
And so I always
You know,
tried to
Tony
look good.
Jr. would say that about when Tony Jr. went to go work for Robert, his grandfather, obviously. They spent more time making it look good. I mean, he polished more cars.
Oh, yeah.
He wanted to look good.
Oh, yeah.
So you run your own car. Why'd you stop? You got the deal from
Nygaard. Yeah.
All right.
Well,
Donnie's driving for them.
yeah, Donnie was driving for me.
They running good.
Oh, yeah. They ran pretty
Almost
good.
won the Daytona 500. They always
Mario
have some break, fall
Mario
off.
Rossi was a crew chief, engine guy, and Bill Gardner. This is an episode of my life that every time I look at my career, Bill Gardner, Junior Johnson, Rick Hendrick, they're all little stepping stones.
Sure.
But Bill Gardner owned Nygaard, and here I am, a ragtag, one-car operation, and I outran them a lot.
Yeah.
And this particular race, the 4th of July race at Daytona, I passed Donnie on the last lap to finish 3rd or 4th. And it made Bill Gardner so mad that he fired Donnie.
My gosh.
He fired him that day. And his brother Jim ran the race team. And so Bill Gardner said, I don't know who, I'm tired of that kid outrunning me. I want you to hire him. Ooh. And so Jim said, you want me to hire him? He said, find out where he is, make a deal with him. I want him driving my car.
Yep.
And so back in the day, we ran that race on Saturday, and Stevie's mom and dad had a house down at Vero Beach. So when the race was with, we went to Vero Beach, spent a couple of days, and came back by Daytona. I wanted to pick up my check because, you needed that money, pay your tire bill and whatnot. And so I go back by the Daytona headquarters, and they say, have you seen Jim Gardner? I said, no, I haven't seen Jim Gardner. He's looking for you. I said, why is he looking for me? They want to hire you. I said, well, that ain't going to happen. I mean, I got a better car than they got. I got a better team than they got. So anyway, we start down the road, and Stevie says, so what were y'all talking about in there? I said, those Gardners. I said, they said that Bill Gardner wanted to hire me to drive that 88 car. She said, what'd you tell them? I said, I told them, hell no. I said, I got a better car than they have. Are you crazy? She said, you know how far in debt we are? You know how much money we owe? And you could go drive for somebody else? I said, well, I'm not going to do it. You will not believe. So we're going down the road. We're coming back to Charlotte. We stopped to get gas at a gas station, and guess who's there at that gas station?
Jim
Gardner.
Oh, wow.
Wow.
That's fake.
I mean, that's just
yeah.
and so I'm putting gas. He says, when can we get together? I said, well, I don't know. He said, we want you to drive our car. I said, really? I said, you want me to drive your car? I said, don't you think I gotta, maybe you should be looking at driving, maybe you should be helping me with my car. But anyway, so we talked and we left there and we drove on down the road, and Stevie said, that's it. That's a sign. You got to go drive for them. So I got home and Bill called me and we got together and I signed a deal. In the middle of 75, I won Richmond. It was my car, but it had Dygard on it. So I ran my cars a few races, and I won Richmond in that car that year. It was my car, and then we signed Gatorade. Gatorade was funny. Gatorade was my father-in-law's vice president at the company. Went to school with Bill Stokely at Tennessee. So my father-in-law's vice president knew Bill Stokely. And these stories could go on forever. But Gatorade was sponsoring Johnny Rutherford at the Indy 500.
Yeah.
They had on Indy car.
Okay.
Bill Stokely, he doesn't know much about racing, but he just wants to be on a car. They go to the Indy 500 Sunday morning. They won't let him in. He couldn't get his credential because he didn't get there in time. And so his name's on the car. They won't let him in to watch his car run, so he left. And he was livid. So he called my friend, and my father-in-law vice president said, was telling him the story. He said, well, why don't you come to NASCAR? Mm-hmm. They won't treat you that way at NASCAR. It said
They'll let anybody in.
Yeah. I mean, look at Pit Road. Highly restricted area, but look at Pit Road. But anyway, so that's how we got to. So I went to Indianapolis, met with Bill Stokely. This one I still had my own car, and I realized right away, this is a much bigger deal. It's kind of like when Junior Johnson went to RJ Reynolds. Mm-hmm. There's a lot bigger deal than just sponsoring a car. This guy's got a lot of money, and he wants to be a big wheel. So I met Bill Gardner, I met Bill Stokely, and I got Gatorade, and I thought, I put this all together, and maybe I can come up with something. And that's how we got Gatorade.
That is really cool because Gatorade, that became kind of an iconic car.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
The Gatorade sponsorship, that was a big deal.
What I loved about that car, Bill Gardner didn't know anything about racing. Him and his brother-in-law, Mike DeProspero, that's where that DeProspero and Dygard came from.
Okay.
And they didn't know anything about racing. Mike was a race fan, and he knew a little bit about racing, but he didn't know a lot about racing. Bill didn't know anything about racing. So it was an educational process. That was the only, when I drove for Dygard, when I drove for Bill Gardner, I had a contract. Mm-hmm. I thought, what the heck? Nobody has contract in racing. Now, all the crew members had contracts because Bill was a businessman. Everything had to be in writing, and you had to sign it. And so his approach to the sport was totally different than Bud Moore or anybody else in the sport at the time. And so I never had to deal with somebody like that. And it was a tumultuous time. Started off great, but
started
it
off
ended
good.
You did okay.
Ended bad.
Yeah.
Ended bad.
Ended bad, Mike.
Yeah.
Bad.
And how bad?
So,
well, I was going to drive for Roger Penske. So I go.
What year were you planning on doing that?
That was 1980. So I was going to drive for Roger Penske. So I go to fly to New York, get on.
He's not in the sport. Like he's sold his car to
was
Rod Osterlund.
He had the Matador.
Yeah, but he sold his team.
And then he had a car.
Yeah, Dave Marcus drove it, and then Rod, he sold all his cars and everything to Osterlund, so he was coming back in.
So you might be right. You know, you're a better historian than I am about some of those things. But I'm going to drive for Roger Penske, and I'm pretty excited about that. So I go to Roger's house outside of New York. I don't remember where it was. And we have lunch. We eat. And I said, okay, kind of made a deal. So we get back home, and the next day Roger calls me and said, hey, tear that deal up. He said, the deal's off. I said, what happened? What's wrong? He said, Bill Gardner called me, and Bill Gardner said, if I sign you to a contract and you drive my car, neither one of us will be in racing anymore.
He wasn't happy.
He wasn't happy about that at all.
You had a contract with him.
I had a contract with him.
Oh, that's where those contracts come
so
in
all
handy.
the damn contracts were just getting in my way, you know. They were messing up everything. But anyway, so I finished out the year in 1980 with Dygard, and then
You went to Junior Johnson.
Yeah, with Cale Yarborough. I love Cale. He kind of reminds me of Robert G. really, but Cale came to me in 1980, middle of the year, maybe somewhere along the way. He put his arm around me. He said, DW, I'm going to tell you something. I'm leaving juniors. I said, what? He said, I hadn't told anybody else. You're the first person I've told, but I'm leaving juniors. I said, you got to be out of your mind. He just won 3 championships. Win every week. He said, I'm tired of racing every week. I just want to cut back. I'm going to drive for MC Anderson. He said, but here's what I want to tell you. Junior Johnson wants you to drive his car. Junior Johnson wants me to drive his car. I mean, that was like flattering, because when I was a kid growing up, I listened to Junior Johnson on my transistor radio. He drove that number 3 car, that white Chevrolet, and he'd been to prison. He was a moonshiner. He lived in North Carolina. He lived in Wilkesboro, and he had the best car. He had the best car in the sport, and he wanted me to drive it. Well, that floored me.
Well, but hold on a second. Before we get there, you seem to know it ended badly with Bill Gardner, but you wouldn't have been privy to the information about the contract. So, like, was there animosity that was very public or something?
Very public. So,
very.
You can fill the gaps here, but by the middle of the year in 1980, you and Bill are not communicating.
No, not at all.
You're basically, I can't get out of this contract, so I'm gonna finish my season with this '88 car, and then I'm moving on. Bill Gardner, he couldn't have been. Maybe he was serious, but because you say he doesn't know much about racing or didn't.
Well, he learned fast though.
He brings Bruce Jenner and a guy and someone else.
Yeah.
I can't remember who else it was, but he brought he brings Bruce Jenner and someone else to the Charlotte race.
Yeah, in the fall,
and has them interview Bill and Bruce and another athlete.
Yeah, I can't remember. It was an IndyCar driver. I forget who he was.
No.
I
can't remember who it is. I'm trying to pull it up, but
yeah,
they interview Bill and Bruce Jenner and some other athlete about, he's like a athlete in another sport.
Yeah.
And about driving this car.
Yeah.
Hey, Darrell's leaving, but look, Bruce Jenner.
Yeah.
Bruce was an big deal.
Yeah.
He might drive my car next year.
Yeah.
DW's old news.
No, DW's going to be sitting in the grandstand.
Yeah.
That's what he
right.
said.
Yeah.
That's what he held over my head. That I had this contract. It was irrevocable. And you couldn't put a value on it. When I would try to find out, what do I got to do to get out of this contract? You can't get out of this contract. You are a rare commodity, and there's no way to put a value on this contract. And so it took some finagling to finally get around to what it took to get out of that contract. And my attorney, Ed Silva, and Peter Pinzer was Bill Gardner's attorney, and they were talking on the phone one day, and Ed's pretty shrewd, and he was taping the conversation, and he asked Peter, he said, just hypothetically, what would it take for DW to get out of that contract? He said, well, he's got 3 years left. It'd take $100,000 a year at least. That's all we needed. I mean, that was all we needed was a number. So it was $300,000 for me to get out of that contract.
And that's what you gave him?
That's what we gave him.
Oh, I assumed that your contract was going to run out at the end of the year.
Oh, no.
It was a multi-year deal.
No, I had just signed a new deal.
Why did you do that?
Well, I was dumb. I was really dumb. I was sitting in the car somewhere. I don't remember where. I don't know, Daytona, Talladega, somewhere. And they bring the contract to the car before the race starts.
You must have just qualified on the pole or something really
Right.
good.
I was feeling good about myself.
Great mood.
I'm feeling good about myself.
Yeah.
But I did learn one thing. If somebody says in lieu of, you better be sure you know what that means.
Right, you didn't know that.
I found out right quick in lieu of, they had paid me 40% and my expenses. Well, my new contract, I wanted 50% and my expenses. Well, I got to 50%, but it said in lieu of your expenses. So I go to the shop like Monday or Tuesday after one of the races. He said, where's your credit card? I said, I got it right here. Well, let me have it. What do you want it for? Well, we're not paying your expenses anymore. You're not? Why not? He said, well, you agreed to that. I did? Well, I didn't know I did. I didn't know what in lieu of meant.
Yeah.
And so I got 50%, but I lost my expenses, which was pretty large at the time.
You guys have an answer in the booth on who this?
Yeah, it's Leah brought up a social thing. You could read it.
This is from NASCAR Man. In October 1980, Darrell Waltrip announced he was leaving Dyard Racing. To replace him, the owner sent telegrams containing offers to drivers like Mario Andretti, F1 champ Alan Jones, Paul Newman, and Bruce Jenner.
Yeah.
Wow. Mario Andretti.
Yeah, right.
Paul Newman.
Right.
Bruce Jenner. Like, who else? What's O.J. Simpson doing at the time?
Yeah.
So it seemed like things were going
Driving his
south
white
throughout
Bronco.
the whole
He
team.
didn't care
though.
about all that.
Yeah. So Matthew brings up a good point. The whole team was kind of busting up.
Yeah.
Robert stuck around though, didn't he? Or Yates.
Well-
He ends up. Robert Yates is working on that car for years.
Yeah.
And becomes the head engine guy.
Yeah.
Did you know Robert Yates was what he was?
Oh, well,
Back
I
then?
met Robert at Junior's. When I was buying used parts from Junior run them 500 miles, then I'd buy them and try to run them 500 more miles. Sometime he did, and sometime he didn't. But anyway, so Robert Yates was working at Junior's, and I lured him away from Junior's to come to Dyard.
To fix the motor issues you were having when
Because
Rossi.
Mario Rossi, we'd put an engine in a car, we'd run 10 laps, it'd blow up. I mean, almost every week.
Same problem Donnie had driving that car.
Yeah, and I'll never forget. So we bought all these radios, like $30,000 radios, which is a lot back in the day. And Bill Gardner had a radio on, a big headset on. We run about 10 laps, and I said, blew up. He come down when the race over, threw the helmet and threw the radios, and said, I could have heard that over the PA system. He said, I didn't need no damn radio. So anyway, but yeah, Robert was cool. Robert was one of the coolest.
Did you know he was as good of a motor builder?
Oh no, I just knew what he could do at Junior's.
Yeah.
I mean, I knew he built some incredibly good engines up. I got to tell you this. So the first time I go to Martinsville in Junior's car, and we're getting ready for the race, and I said, so what gear do y'all run up here? 567. What? There's no way you can run a 567 gear at Martinsville. If you have a 454, you can. So that was in an era. Remember when Bobby protested Richard and at Charlotte Motor Speedway,
Yes.
and Richard for having a big motor, and big motors were like pretty easy to get by with at that time.
How?
This old guy, Mr. Hyder, I loved him to death, but they pumped the same cylinder every week. I mean, he'd screw things, but and that, so they just paraffin in the cylinders, or that cylinder would be right and the rest of them be wrong. Just all kind of tricky things that you could do, because they knew that Mr. Hyder, you're going to do the same one, because it's only get to real easy with the headers and everything.
Yeah.
So that's how they ran the big motors, and they ran them a lot.
Oh yeah.
Matter of fact, they tried to run one. Well, they did win. They won in 80. What was that? 83, when Richard had the big motor at Charlotte.
Yes. They caught
83.
him.
And they caught him.
Yeah.
Mr. Hyder wasn't on the
No.
on the business that
Well,
day.
I think they'd have got away with it, but they put Barry Dotson was the crew chief, I think, and they put left side tires on the right.
Soft tires.
So they had the left tires on the right. They knew that in Victory Lane, and then I'll never forget Chief. He's going down pit lane saying, "I'm claiming 383 right now, 383." He said, "You don't have to tear it down. It's a 383." And I'll never forget that. And of course, that was another whole story. But Humpy Wheeler called me. I'd gone. The junior would matter in hell.
Yeah.
He made us load the car and go home, and he left early because Richard blew by me and won the race, and he could not understand how that could happen, but he did. And so I'm at the hotel, and Humpy Wheeler calls me. He says, "Stand by, you won this race." I said, "Yes." He said, "Richard had a big motor left side of the body." He told me all about it. I said, "Cheating." I knew he was cheating. I knew it had to be. He couldn't drive by me like that if he wasn't doing something. So anyway, they come on, and Bill Gasway, I think, might have been Dick Beatty, but one of those guys. And they said they were going to let the win stand, and they were going to fine him $30,000. Well, that's the difference between first and second. If I win, I would have gotten $30,000 more, but I didn't. I finished second, so they took my $30,000 and paid his fine with it.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
anyway,
Yeah.
that's another story.
So the 88 Gatorade team's kind of crumbling apart.
Yeah.
They've got it back together, and Bobby drives for them. Did
Yeah.
you not tell Bobby when he goes to drive for Dyard what he was getting himself into?
What was funny was, so
Well,
we
even
go.
Donnie not tell Bobby. Donnie's the
Yeah.
one that got fired
Yeah.
before.
So we go
Yeah, that's a good
to the bank on Monday morning with I had the $300,000, which was they're talking 1980.
Yeah.
$300,000, a lot of money. So we go in, we sit down, we sign all the papers, and we get ready to leave. And Bill Gardner said, "Whoa! You owe me $25,000 more. I said, "For what?" He said, Are you in the Bud shootout? Are you in the Bush Clash?" I said, "Yeah." He said, "Well, you'll probably win it, and I want my half now." So I had to give him $25,000 more,
What?
$325,000,
On the assumption that you were going to win and that was going to be the purse?
which I did, but he was right.
But I've never heard that.
I passed Benny on the last lap on the apron. Benny was hot. Anyway, I won that race. Anyway, but when I got ready to leave,
Wait a second, though. Keep going.
no, when I got ready to leave, well, Ricky Rudd followed me, and Ricky Rudd was sitting in the outside office there when I walked out, and I said, "Buddy, you won't last 2 years with that crowd." I said, "Good luck." And that was who took the car.
Yeah.
I think he drove it 1 year, maybe 2.
1 year, maybe, yeah.
And then Bobby got in the car, and they won the championship. And Gary Nelson was the crew chief, and Bobby and I became big rivals, and it was a mess.
Bobby had the same sort of bad ending on. He got when they brought Sachs in trying to run a second car, and Bobby's like, "No, I don't. This ain't what we're doing."
No.
And he ended up getting pissed and
he did.
taking off.
I'll never forget. Gardner was shrewd. I mean, he was a businessman. He was shrewd. Robert Yates is the engine guy, and they're buying all this equipment for Robert to have for his engine room. And Robert's got a really nice equipment, really nice engine room, and it's all at Dygard. And so the deal falls apart, and Robert's going to send the movers over to get his equipment because they had been taking money from him every month or ever how often it was to pay for the equipment. So Robert had bought the equipment. He owned it. But when they went to shut the deal down, the bank wouldn't let Robert have his equipment because it was under some big umbrella loan policy. And so Robert ended up with nothing. And that's when Robert went and started a 28 team.
Yeah.
Wow.
With Davey and he and his son, and they did really well.
Yeah. So talking about Bobby Allison getting upset or getting frustrated with the Sachs car. So you were also, and Dad certainly. No, none of y'all liked the idea of a 2-car team.
Oh no.
Or a teammate. Why?
No.
Because all of us. I'll just say this, and you may have become this way over time, but me and a lot of the guys that I race with, teammates are a necessity. Teammates are, you lean on your teams and try to make yourself better by watching them.
Yeah.
But back then in the 80s, Junior Johnson's going to have a second car, basically.
Neil Bonnet, yeah.
Yeah. But y'all were more competitive with that team.
Yeah.
Than you were anybody else on the track.
Oh, Junior was terrible. Neil Bonnet and Tim Brewer would be down there, and he'd go down there and rile them up, and he'd come up here and rile me and Hammond up, that rivalry. But
he would rile up the two teams?
Yeah, he loved that, yeah.
And what would he say to do
he'd
that?
say, "Neil's going to kick your ass." How you figure that? So anyway, that's kind of how it went,
Yeah.
And Brewer, you know how Brewer was. He's cocky anyway. I got a brand new Rolex, got a pocket full of $100 bills, got a pair of Rockports. I'm doing good. Shag carpet on the wall. Anyway, that's a whole other. Listen,
I like shag carpet, but I never put it on the wall.
Oh no, we used to get in those hotels like the Pocono, particularly. You get a honeymoon suite that had shag carpet on the damn wall. With a heart-shaped bathtub. But anyway, it's just so different. And the reason we didn't like teammates is because we didn't have enough parts.
Oh.
Like, you'd have one set of cylinder heads, or you'd have one crankshaft, or you'd have one
carburetor.
Yeah, I mean, you had a trick carburetor. You don't want the other guy to have it. And so it wasn't like it is today where everything, you build engines, he gets out, everybody gets the same thing. There wasn't any such thing back in the day as everybody gets the same thing. You had something special. You had a qualifying motor that was special. Well, where are we going to get another one? And that's why nobody liked teammates. You just didn't like sharing. You had all these ideas and setups and things that you did, and you don't want to share that with anybody. You don't want them to know what you were doing. You don't want them to be equal to you. If you had an advantage some way, you wanted to keep it.
How would that get resolved?
Well, it usually didn't.
Okay.
But Rick was first guy probably that I remember when I went to drive for Rick in '86, and he set us down. He set me down. He said, "Now look, you're going to have teammates. That's the way we operate around here. If you can't deal with that, then you need to do something else."
But were you having to fight for parts at Hendrick Motorsports?
It was, well, by then things were starting to be multiple, pistons were more, the parts became more and more available.
It wasn't a premium back at Junior
but
Johnson's.
in the 70s and 80s,
Sure.
The early part of the 80s, I mean, you had things that were exclusively yours that you didn't want to let go of to let somebody else have that advantage. So
there were times at Hendrick early on where the teammate stuff, was a problem. I'd say Dad, but Rick had to get him on the floor.
What was the nature of you and Neil Bonnet?
Milk meeting.
Yeah, cookies and milk.
How were you and Neil Bonnet as far as a relationship then? I mean, competitive, yes. I understand the teammate dynamic, but Neil Bonnet seemed like, to me, what I've seen is the most likable guy out there. Is that wrong?
The best teammate you could have.
Is that right?
He didn't have a big ego. He was he liked to race. He was a racer. I won Nashville in 85, I guess it was. I think it was, or 84. And he passed me on the last lap of the race. You can't do that. Once you take the white flag, the field is frozen. And Neil passed me on the last lap and came back ahead of me, and they said he won the race. And this was Junior. Now, one thing about Junior, you didn't, rules are rules, and you play by the rules. And he was pretty strict about that. So they said, no, you got passed. So Neil won the race. You ran second. I said, no way. We're going to protest. And Dick Beatty was the competition director then.
Had the caution come out?
That was
here's what happened.
Rumor.
Yeah, here's what happened. We're coming off of turn 4.
Okay.
I stayed out because I had a second place car. Neil had the best car, but they pitted and they got 2 tires.
Oh.
So I stayed out. And so I got by some cars, and there was a little gap between me and Neil, but he was going to win that race if the caution didn't come out. But we're coming off turn 4, and the caution comes out. So the white flag and the caution come out together. We're not in the last lap. We're coming to go into the last lap, but we're not in the last lap. And that's what Beatty couldn't get through his head, is that the caution came out, but he didn't think about the white flag came out with it. And so I was already across the line when the caution
Race
came
is
out.
over.
And the race is over. But then it was a big mess.
Yeah.
So that night we protested, and we went through the rule book and everything, and Beatty said, I don't care what you say, Bonnet won the race. And Junior don't care because he got both cars, first and second. What does he care? I leave that next morning to go to Milwaukee to run a bush race. And I get to the airport, and there's a damn caravan waiting for me. And it's NASCAR people. And they said, look, because I thought I would sue y'all. I said, I got proof. And what helped me that night was Channel 5, Hope Hines, my friend there, had a cameraman on the flag stand with Harold Kinder. So they're filming the last few laps of that race. And so you see me coming off turn 4, and you see the yellow flag and the white flag come out together. And that's what made them change their mind, or change that I did win that race.
There's evidence.
Yeah, so we had them. We knew we had them. I said, I'm going to sue you.
Well, there's 3 wrecks that coming to the white flag.
Oh,
so
it
I
was
think
a mess.
the tower was confused because there was literally 3 different wrecks.
chaos.
Richard Petty, Bobby Allison,
Tires blowing out, people running over crap, and
Cruiser getting into
So
it
what'd they do?
afterwards.
so that next day they said, we're going to change it. You won the race, but don't say anything derogatory, or don't say anything.
I had them all the time. I knew I had this one in the back.
Let us handle it. I
Gotcha.
said, I don't care what you do as long as I get the trophy. That's all I care.
Oh my goodness! So I bet that was did wonders for team dynamics that week.
But Junior was writing it. He was on our side. I mean, he said, DW won this race, and
Really?
So we're gonna protest. And he wants to sue him. That's up to
Protest
him.
my own
Hey,
car.
I can't help but ask this question. For somebody in his first race that was so concerned about whether your car was cheated up, Junior Johnson.
Yeah,
I mean, part of his legend
yeah.
is that he could, what do we call it, innovative or
Yeah,
creative.
Yeah,
creative. Yes,
Oh, yeah.
we call Chad Ganous creative.
yeah.
Were you still concerned about whether your car was legal or not at that time, or had you come to grips with it?
That wasn't my car.
Now you're
That's
fine.
Junior's car.
You've learned to cope with
Yeah.
it.
Well, Junior was a pretty big fanatic about a lot of things. One thing about you could not run a big motor. I mean, that was no. You could not do that. And we had a qualifying motor, and I think the limit was 358. And we won a pole somewhere. And they tore us motor. We won pole, like in 81, 82, won a pole every week. They tear the motor down about every other week. So finally, about second year, same motor over and over again. They tore it down. It was 358.00001. and they were going to disqualify us
because of that.
And Junior talked him out of it. I mean, Junior had a lot of clout. But that was the only time that I drove that car that I ever heard or knew of us being anywhere near over the limit.
That was it.
Now, there were other things that we may have
like what
done that were not necessarily.
Well, like what?
Well, we were not rule breakers. We were rule makers.
Okay.
Junior had a roller cam. They were not legal. But he had figured out a way to take a flat tappet and put a ball in the bottom of that flat tappet and turned it into a roller cam. And so all these things were okay until I came along. When I came along, I said, hey, can't do that anymore. We had a spacer, just really beautiful piece of work. I don't know who did it. Tapered spacer. No, can't run that anymore. Got to put that away. Everything that had made them special, different, creative, innovative, one by one they took away.
Yeah.
Because of you or
because of me. I had a tough time, and I did it. Look, I did it to myself. I was a smart ass.
You brought heat,
and so when they said you can't do that, I said, why not? Or when they said, well, that's the rule. Well, that's a dumb rule. I'll never forget. I called Bill France one day. I said, Bill, it's some rule change they made. I said, Bill, I'd like to know who the dumbass is that made that rule. He said, you're talking to him. So anyway, I learned the hard way. I'm a life
called
experience.
You Jaws for a reason.
Yeah.
It wasn't because you were chewing up the competition.
No.
Cale Yarborough gave you that nickname because of your interviews.
Oh yeah. I was bad to go off.
Did you know you were bad at that? Did you know that was incurring heat on you like it ultimately did? Did you put those things together?
Mm-hmm. I probably did, but I don't think I cared.
I think
Right.
you tried to use it for your benefit.
Yeah, I did. The media.
He played it up. He played the role.
All we had was the media. We had the print media. We didn't have Twitter. We didn't have TV shows every day. We didn't have any other avenue, any other venue to express ourselves. And so I made sure that I was really, really good friends with all the media guys. Tom Higgins, Steve Wade, any of those guys that wrote, weekly reports or were at the track every week. I was their buddy.
That's astute.
And I was their go-to guy. And you know what? It really made me feel good because it didn't happen a lot, but every now and then Bill France Jr. would come put his arm around me and say, you're my go-to guy on this, whatever the issue might be. You're my go-to guy. And yeah, that's right. I'm your go-to guy. I'm your man.
So
but you know what I love, and Dale knows this. They make rules for everybody. Mm-hmm. And a lot of times those rules don't necessarily fit what you're doing or your situation. But they try to make rules that fits the entire field, not just one little guy.
Yeah.
Not one guy.
One of the things that I heard that Junior and his guys were doing in the do car was lead shot in the frame rail.
Yeah, that's possible. That's possible.
Yeah.
Well, and look, everything.
I want to explain to Mike what that would mean.
Yeah.
Is so they put lead blocks in the cars to bolt that, and they bolt that in, right? Mm-hmm. And the car makes weight, and so in some cars, and this is not exclusive to Junior, but back in the early '80s, maybe a lot in the '70s, they would fill the frame with lead shot, and then they would keep the lead shot in there with putty or a soap or anything that could get hot and melt.
Oh yeah.
And then once it came up to temp, or maybe there was a trap door to open or something like that, the lead shot could pour out of the frame, and then the car's hundreds of pounds lighter.
Well, and here was the deal, and everything
But the lead shot had to go somewhere.
Yeah, they would create situation for they never thought about unintended consequences. So the car, let's just say the car had to weigh 3,700 pounds when it went through tech. So you made sure your car weighed 3,700 pounds when it went through tech. They wouldn't weigh them after the race. I was at Martinsville. I said, they're going through this. I said, hey, ever think about weighing these cars after the race? And Bill Gasaway was the inspector. He said, boy, let me tell you something. When that car goes on the line, it's legal. That's all I care about.
Why would you plant that idea into their head to weigh the cars after the race, being that you were
well, if they did,
the beneficiary?
If they weighed everybody, I'm okay with that.
Yeah, I got
the top 5 or whatever, but they wouldn't weigh anybody, and we always knew. We had the lead shot in the frame rail. That's just what we did. If they didn't have scales like they got today. They had grain scales, so you had 4 of them, and they had a place where you drove the car up on. They weigh all 4 wheels and then push you off. So if they put those scales in the truck, we knew they weren't going to weigh the cars when the race was over with because they done loaded up ready to hit the road for the next race. So that was an invitation to be creative.
Empty the car out.
Be creative.
That's so interesting. I one of the, when I was working.
Where did all the lead shot go? Could you see it?
I'll never forget. So one
at a place like Martinsville.
Oh
or
yeah, no,
track.
let me tell you. No, you love this. So Dick Beatty, he liked to walk the racetracks every day because that was his exercise. So I'm walking the racetrack at Martinsville with him one day just for fun. We're walking around the track. He said, DW, something I don't understand. Every week I walk these damn racetracks. I see all these little BBs laying everywhere. He said, I have not figured out where in the hell they come from. So I ain't got a clue, Dick. I don't know. Gosh, that's weird. Wow. Need to look into that.
Yeah.
How long would y'all run that until
when does the lead shot come out?
Yeah.
Lap 1?
Well, you had to be careful. You had to be. Here's look. Okay, so we dropped a little lead every now and then, but everybody did.
Yeah.
I mean, when you go to Martinsville, just Martinsville sticks out in my mind. Wayne Thornberry, he worked for Richard. They would take a wagon down to Richard's car. They would take the car cover off of it. They would change out the radio and the helmet and everything else, and that wagon would come back down through there, and he could barely pull it. It was so loaded up with lead and everything else. And so the tires would be, squished down. And so it wasn't like you're the only guy that was smart enough to do it. I mean, there was other ways of heavy helmets, heavy radios, heavy whatever.
Yeah.
But this is pretty cool. So you have a jack stop in the frame rail where you jack the car up. So that's where we let the lead shot out at. And so I had a little wrench. I did this little T-handle. I'd undo that. I'd back that center of that jack stop out. All the lead shot would go out that hole.
You were the one that
he had to engage the.
You were the one
in the car.
Yeah, you're like the wizard behind the curtain, sitting there at the controls of the lead shot.
We didn't do it every week. We just did it every now and then. But anyway, so we're at Bristol, and it was under caution. I didn't do it right. So under caution, I backed that screw out. And all of a sudden, all that I guess that lead had gotten wet or something, and it didn't come out.
Oh. And
so I didn't know if it didn't come out or not. I just did what I was supposed to. So we're going in the race, and all of a sudden the damn lid all comes out at one time, and I mean I'm in third turn. I'm about to spin out, and I finally catch it, and I just shoot down pit road. Well, Dave Marcus was on pit road, so I come down pit road out of control. And they thought Dave Marcus was the one that was dropping the shot. So they're wearing his car out trying to figure out where it came from. Yeah, they ain't going to find it. So they're looking at all the cars. They're going to look at, I won the race. They look at the car. They take the jack. So here's the jack stop. So they put the jack and they jack the car up. So the jack is sitting on the hole.
Yeah, on the trap door.
And they could look for a day. They could look forever. They're never going to find it. The jack has got the hole covered.
They covered the hole. That's awesome.
So it was a lot of that was. I mean, I know that sounds kind of.
It's great. Yeah. That's what So I mean, I always believe that if your crew chief isn't trying, if that car isn't illegal, then he ain't trying hard enough.
I agree.
And that our job as drivers and crew chiefs and all the mechanics and crafty guys back here, engineers especially these days, it's their job to find holes in that rule book.
Yeah.
Like you say, not break the rules, make new ones.
Yeah.
And that's and it's their job as an industry, as an organization, to govern it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, there were not a lot of inspectors. I mean, there were, 5 or 6 maybe at the most, and they had to look after all the cars, and so some of them were your buddies, and they had to look the other way about certain things. But we, literally, the things you've heard, and maybe you haven't heard these, but if we had something on the front of the car that we were trying to get away with, maybe we had cocked the nose or moved the nose or whatever, we would go to the rear of the car and we would do something so blatantly obvious that the inspector would walk by and say, "You got to fix that."
We talked about this last week on the show. We talked about this very
You got to
thing.
fix that. Okay. Well, we'll fix it. Yeah, no problem.
Yeah, it's just like the boxer in the ring that spins one arm and punches you with the other one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We talked about this very thing. I'm interested because you just said sometimes they'd look the other way. So, certainly I'm not speaking of the way NASCAR would govern the league today. But Junior had a lot of sway.
Yeah.
And he also was very creative and innovative and stuff. Yeah. And so there were things that he could get away with, I would assume, because, the story that I was privy to was because I worked with Jimmy Spencer.
Yeah.
And he was telling about that 1994 season when Jimmy won his only 2 races.
Oh, yeah. Well.
In that car. And I believe he said something like that Junior came up to him and said, you do a way better Junior impersonation than I could, but boy, if you can't win in this car, you need to be bagging groceries or something like that, right?
Yeah.
And I believe, if I heard the story right, that NASCAR kind of was on to what they did.
Yeah.
But then they said, don't bring it back.
Yeah.
And they brought it back.
Yeah.
And did one again, and they won again.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I know Junior told me, I said 94, I guess, when Spencer, and, I love Spencer, but wouldn't say he was the greatest driver I ever saw, but I just pretty, he could be
Rough
an adversary sometime, but so they won a couple of races at Daytona and Talladega. I think, I know Daytona for
and
sure.
Talladega, yeah.
And I went up to Junior, I said, Junior, what the hell are y'all doing anyway? He said, boy, we'll win every damn race till they catch us.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Well,
Well,
but I've had I love doing this because you get kind of brings back memories, some good, some bad. Sure. But the sport today, people just have no idea what it was like when we started to the way it is today. If a guy walked in the shop with a briefcase, we don't even come in here, go somewhere else. Because, it had a briefcase and it had a computer.
Or
laptop. We're going to keep laps and tires. And I said, no. We got this handled. You go do something else. We're fine.
Yeah.
And that was really it's probably my downfall.
Did you ever have any nitro in your car?
Once.
Really?
Oh, yeah, one time. Well, when I went to drive for Dyegard in the first year, Donnie and Mario Rossi, they've been running every week.
Nitro?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's how they qualify pretty good. But
who was it that was it J.D. McDuffie sat on the pole and wrecked his car, and the nitrous fell out of the frame?
It exposed it.
Yeah.
It exposed it in the side of the car.
That's possible. It wasn't that. It wasn't all that unheard of.
Really?
To have a little assistance
shot of nitrous
when you qualified. Yeah. Normally just when you qualified. But I only got that one time I qualified. Like me and AJ Foyt, I think I was on pole, he was outside, or vice versa, I don't remember which. And neither one of us had run worth a damn all day long. Like we're 25th in practice, but we end up qualifying on the front row. And so it's kind of like, what did y'all do? I'll never forget, we take that car in there, and Rossi was the crew chief, and he had put the nitrous bottle in the petty bar. So it's about that long, and it's mounted and covered up in the roll cage. And all I had to do is stick a little wrench in there and open that baby up, and that thing would take off. I mean, I'd never done it before, so I was excited about, wonder what this is going to do. Well, it wake that baby up, I'm telling you.
What did it feel like?
Oh, it took off like a rocket.
It put you back in the seat?
Oh, I don't know that, at Daytona, you didn't necessarily feel it, but you could tell it was going, because you've been turning 7,000, now you're turning 7,500. I mean, good grief.
When would you walk me through the process then? When exactly would you do this?
On the straightaway. I mean,
While you're running?
Oh, yeah.
While you're in
like you'd go out of the pits and get up on the bank and start down the back. You had this little wrench. You had it between you. Take that little wrench, reach it up in the slot, and that thing go, BOOM! And it'd take off. I mean,
That's awesome.
it'd go crazy.
You're doing that while you're driving at speed.
Up to speed qualifying.
yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
Right, still. I mean, can you imagine how many people wadded up just to like, what were you doing?
No,
Well, I mean, I had to wrench that thing. I mean, you got to open it up.
I was pretty busy in my race car for a lot. You know, when we go through tech, your right side had to weigh so much. So we'd have a block of Mallory that was bolted to the frame on the right side to make the right side weight be right. So when we get ready to then put me in the car, they'd undo that. They'd give me a piece of just tube, and they'd put the tube where the Mallory was, and I'd take the Mallory and put it over on the left side to get the left side weight up. So it's just
I bet the worst.
But listen, this sounds really bad, I know, but it's not, because there wasn't a lot of people around to watch to take. I had a helmet. It weighed 50 pounds. I never wore it. But it hung in the car. I had a radio. I'll never forget this. We're at Charlotte. And Dick Beatty. And he comes, me and Rusty and Dale and all, we're sitting there talking one day, and he walks up and he's got this radio right here. And I said, Dick, is there something wrong with your radio? And he goes, wham! He throws that damn piece of Mallory down. It's weighed about 50 pounds. He said, it ain't my damn radio. He said, you want to know where we got it? And I said, I think I know.
I was gonna say, I bet the worst day of your life was when they introduced in-car cameras. That would have changed the game for a lot of people.
Yeah, you just hard to get away with stuff like that now.
Yeah.
The playing field has been leveled.
yeah, for sure.
I mean, it truly is.
Nowhere to hide things, hardly, is there?
No,
Yeah.
not that I'm aware of.
Let's talk to me a little bit about driving for Junior Johnson.
Oh.
So you seem to have found your home.
Yeah,
You seem to love the relationship that you
do.
had with him.
yeah.
Almost kind of like a father-son kind
Yeah.
of thing. Y'all were so different. Y'all kind of balanced each other out.
Yeah.
And you had incredible success.
Oh, my, yeah. I'll never forget when I went to drive for Junior, he said, you keep that mouth shut, I'll do the talking, you do the driving. I said, okay. And I was going to move to Wilkesboro. Junior was really big on leaving his legacy to someone. And he and Floss, they couldn't have children. And so that really bugged Junior. He wanted to have someone to leave his legacy to. And he and I became really like a father and a son, really. I loved him, and I think he loved me. But what muddied the water was Rick. I mean, he didn't like Rick at all. They were adversaries.
Really?
Back
Rick
in the
was
day.
the new
He's the new
generation
Yeah.
of owner.
New
Yeah.
money.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, it all came to head when one day we had a set of cylinder heads that was supposed to come from Rear Morrison, and they went to Hendrick Motorsports instead of to Junior Johnson. And somehow, some way, Junior found out about it, and that kind of tipped him over the edge. But so Rick had called me and said, it's not 86. He said, your contract's up with Rick. I want you to come drive for me. I said, are you kidding? And this was when Rick was still pretty new.
Yeah.
They were B&R were doing their motors, and they were still there was just a lot of things that were not quite complete. And I said, Rick, I don't think you're ready for me, buddy. I said, but so what's the deal? He said, well, I've got this company, and they want to get in racing, and they want you to be the driver, and I'll pay you $500,000. That was 3 times. I went to drive for Junior in 1980. In 1981, he paid me $150,000. I was still making $150,000. That's salary.
Yeah.
Rick says, I'm going to pay you $500,000. Blah, 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 blah. I mean, painting this. I said, oh, my God. And I said, what's the sponsor? He said, Tide. I said, really? Well, I'm driving for Budweiser. Tide. So anyway, I think I'm just, my mind's all confused. I'm messed up. So I think, well, I'm going to go talk to Junior about this. And this was when Junior was having things were just, Warner Hodgson had come along, and Neil, and there was just a lot of things going on that Junior wasn't really happy about, but it wasn't a whole lot he could do about it. I'll never forget, I walked in, I had on a pair of little half glass, he's looking at something. I said, Junior, I need to talk to you about something. What do you want, boy? And I said, my contracts, we hadn't talked about my contract yet, and I said, but I just got Rick Hendrick called me, and I laid it all out of what Rick had offered me, and he never looks up. Junior, he just keeps looking down. Finally, he looks up at me and he says, "Let me tell you something, boy. You need to go take that deal." Well, that wasn't what I wanted to hear. I mean, I wanted him to come back with, "Well, I can do this, I can do that, blah, 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 blah."
Counter.
Yeah, counter.
Yeah.
No way. And, I mean, he just, "Boy, you ought to go take that deal."
Wow.
And that was the end of it. So, anyway, I walk out, and I go, and I said, "Well, I guess I'm stuck with what I got. I'm going to make any waves. Junior always told me, I can't pay you a lot, but you'll win a lot." And that was kind of the balance. A couple of weeks go by, and I'm down to the shop, and I've got a new car we're working on, and I come in, I want to get the seat and all adjusted, and the whole team, 12 of them, they all come around the car. I said, "What's wrong, boys?" They said, "Why didn't you tell us?" I said, "Why didn't I tell you what? Why didn't you tell us you were leaving?" I said, "Am I leaving?" Because I hadn't
made the decision.
I hadn't talked to Rick. So they said, "Junior came down and said this is your last race, your last year. He won't be driving for us next year." Well, man, you talking about panic. So, and this is before cell phones. So I had to find a payphone fast. So I went and found me a payphone. I called Rick. I said, "Hey, Rick, I've thought it over, and I'll take that deal." And so that's how I ended up driving for Rick.
My gosh.
It wasn't one thing that happened, and I don't know if this is true or not. Some of the guys, Mike Hill that worked there, and some of the guys, we go to Atlanta. That's in '86, and we got a shot at the championships. Me and your dad.
Yep.
And we got a shot at the championship. All we really got to do is outrun him, and we'll win it. And we were pretty good at Atlanta at the time. And we had two engines. Brad Perrier built an engine that we ran all the time, and they were bulletproof. You couldn't blow one of them up. Then we had another guy, that Jeff Wilson. His engines were make more power, but they were not real dependable. Mm-hmm. And I'll never forget, we were at Atlanta, and Junior comes in Saturday morning. He says, "Put that, whatever engine that was, Jeff Wilson's motor in the car." I said, No, we're not going to do that. We're going to run Brad's motor because it may not be the fastest motor, but it won't. We know we can finish. We finish, we'll be all right. I said, "Put that motor in the car." Wow. I mean, it was like Hammond and them boys, they just took the motor out and put his motor in. We ran 30 laps, blew up. And that's how we lost that championship. Well, what I was going to tell you was some of the guys, and I didn't hear this until recently.
Oh.
But some of the guys said that Junior walked into the shop and said, "Are y'all going to let him walk out of here with another championship?" I don't think so. We're all going up to the mountains, and we're going to pick cabbage. Y'all quit working on that car. You can just quit working on it right now. And look, he knows that's the way it was. You were your best friend or you're your worst enemy. And you could go from best friend to worst enemy overnight.
But it's his championship too. He's the car owner.
He parked Bobby Allison drove for him, and Bobby was going to win the championship in 71 or 2 when he drove for Junior.
Yes.
All they had to do is go to the
Coke
last race, start that race, and Bobby would win the championship, and Junior didn't go.
Wow. That's some kind of grudge.
That's the way the mountain people, they don't necessarily think the way you think they should. And I never heard that before, and I don't know if it's true or not, but I do know that he put that engine in that car, and we all knew it was going to blow up. I mean, it always did.
Oh, man. Do you hold, does that still bug you?
No.
I
didn't know about it then. I didn't know about it till recently.
I got you. Well, what year you were driving for Junior when you and Dale tangled at Richmond, right?
Oh, yeah.
So my question, I mean, that's obviously well documented, and everybody, and I'm sure you're asked about it still today. My question to you is, was there ever anything that threatened the relationship between you and Dale? And if so, was that it? Did it threaten a long-term relationship? Because y'all go all the way back to the early 70s now.
Yeah. No, Dale and I we were truly frenemies. We were friends sometimes. We were enemies sometimes. Mm-hmm. And we kind of had a deal. If I can't win, you ain't going to win either.
Really?
That's kind of the way it was. And that day at Richmond, we had a good car. And I loved Richmond. I'd won like 6 races there. And I'll never forget, Junior comes on the radio. It's the end of the race, about 4 or 5 to go, and he says, Darrell, pass pass that car now. I said, okay. So I'm digging, you know, I'm getting down in there, and I'm trying, and it's about 2 to go. Junior comes out road and said, Darrell. I said, pass that SOB now. I said, yes, sir. I went down in the first turn, and I dropped those left sides off in the dirt, and I body slammed Dale a little bit, moved him up the hill, and boy, Junior is going to be so proud of me. This is great. About halfway down the back straightaway, like, yikes. Look, I will tell you this. Dale and I, we were up and down. We were all over the place. One day we were buddies, one day we weren't. But that cost Dale a shot at driving that 11 car if he ever wanted to.
Yeah.
I was going to ask, what did Junior think about Dale?
I'll never forget, Dale came over after a race, and he was apologizing. He said, I didn't mean to do that. And Junior said, boy, get out of my face. He said, I don't ever want to talk to you again. Because Junior, up to that point, had thought about and wanted, kind of liked the way Dale raced. Junior was rough, you know. He didn't mind roughing people up a little bit, and he didn't mind ruffling feathers. And so he was really watching Dale and kind of keeping an eye on him. And I think if that hadn't happened, Dale may have driven that 11 car.
Yeah.
But that happened, and Junior, that was the end of that. And that's the way people that live in that part of that's the way it is.
Yeah.
You sever your tie. That's it. I'm done with you.
Don't piss off
some
those
guy.
Wilkes
Some
people.
guy came by the shop all the time. Junior's. I don't remember what his name was. Bob. Let's just say his name is Bob. One day I hadn't seen Junior. I hadn't seen Bob in a while. What happened to him? He died. Really? What happened to him? I don't know. He died. Well, he didn't die.
I hope not. I
No,
mean,
he didn't die. He just didn't come by there anymore. In Junior's mind, he was gone. Anyway, look, I had some of the best experience. I learned from Bill Gardner. I learned about how
learn about contracts at least.
I learned about contracts. I did. When I drove for Junior, that one sheet of paper, it said, "You drive, I provide the car, I'll pay you this much money." And that was one sheet.
That was the contract.
That
You
was
didn't
the
have in
contract.
lieu of?
So no in lieu of. And we're sitting in a little dark office up in North Wilkesboro, and his Junior's attorney must have been 90 years old. You hear him back there in the back room going, tat, 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 tat. You know, a little typewriter, you know. And my attorney, he went to Harvard. He's a smart guy, you know. And so we're on one side of the table, and Junior's turned on the side. And Ed looks at Junior. He said, "Junior, we worked out everything here, but what are you going to do for Darrell if he wins the championship?" He said, "Boy, I'm going to tell you what I'll do to him if he don't."
That's what in lieu of means in Wilkes
Oh,
County.
yeah, that's it. But I learned from Bill about the business side of it. I learned from Junior about the racing side of it. And then I learned from Rick. Rick was like, put it all together. He was the business side, but he was a racer.
Sure.
So he understood. You had to have contracts, got to have agreements, got to do things a certain way. So I learned something from everybody I drove for.
Talking about the relationship with Dad, I can't think of any instance before that race at Richmond where you guys, I mean, I'm sure y'all had some, y'all used each other up a little bit. Dad was pretty aggressive. But before that wreck, there was really no big issue.
Mm-mm.
Y'all just raced hard.
Yeah.
And Dad would piss people off here and there.
Yeah.
And you were Jaws.
Yeah.
So, but then Richmond happens, and that was giant.
Yeah.
That was a big freaking deal.
It was.
Everybody in the sport was talking about it, and everybody got fined.
Yeah.
And then how do y'all move on? Was there ever a moment where you and Dad had a conversation after that? Never talked about it.
Nope, never did.
Even years later, when you come drive the Pensville car at DEI, never talked about it.
No, I don't. I just think we both thought it was probably better not to bring that up.
Really?
Because the thing about that day was Dale was aggressive, a very aggressive driver. He learned how to do that on the dirt, and so he knew how to put people in bad situations, and he usually would come out on top. But that day it was so blatantly obvious. I mean, it was, he hooked me, and I really hate it because I wasn't smart enough to think about holding him outside. Because all I had to do was stay alongside of him, pushed him up a little bit, I win the race. But I wasn't smart enough I was just thinking about Junior is going to be so proud of me because I'm going by him.
You had to pass it. You were
about
on
that time
passing.
of wreck.
Yeah.
So, but there were times when, probably the only time that I ever confronted your dad about something he did on the track other than what he did to other people, and that always kind of couldn't understand it, but was it the 95 All-Star race when we wrecked?
Oh, yeah, off turn 4.
Oh, you know, people don't realize this, but that was the beginning of the end for me. I'd had some injuries. I'd overcome them, but I broke ribs under my shoulder blade, and I had to have relief drivers. I had a blah, blah, blah. I had good people, Clyde Booth. I had a lot of good people that were working for me at that time, but because I couldn't drive, had to get, I don't know, Jimmy Hensley and different ones of great people. I love them all, but it just, the car didn't run, just couldn't get the car to run up front like it had been, and so they all left, went somewhere else. But
what did he do?
Busted his ass.
Yeah,
he was on the inside of DW coming off turn 4 and just
whew.
lost it.
Well, we were going down the back, and always Jeff Gordon, which, you know, when I started working with Jeff, I thought, this ain't going to work. There's no way we're going to get along.
Booth.
But we got along. Jeff Gordon's a great guy, good team player, good man.
Unless you're racing against Talladega.
Yeah,
team player.
There are
moments.
We all have our moments.
Yeah.
You know? All right. We all let our horns come out every now and then.
Keep going though.
But so it's the All-Star race, and we got a great car. And I just run second in the second segment, and Gordon's on pole, he won it, and I'm on the outside. Dale's third, and I don't remember who's fourth. And so I know if I get in front of Jeff Gordon, I can win that 10-lap shootout. So I'm coming off turn 4, and I'm coming off turn 4. And I probably took off just a little wee bit early, and I beat Gordon past the line and dropped down in front of him going into turn 1, and they threw the caution. Now, I don't know how many times in racing they've ever had a restart, but not any that I can think of.
Yeah.
But anyway, they came on the radio, and they said, we're going to give you one more shot. You jump him again, you're going to the back. I thought, oh, great. So we come this time, and I have to wait, and he gets a little jump, and we go into turn 1 side by side. So we go into turn 1 side by side. We're going down the back. It's kind of bump, bump, bump. And at the corner of my eye, I see sparks flying. I thought, what the hell is that? And I look at it's Dale. And so here's Dale down here, here's Gordon here, and here I am out here. Well, I'm in a pretty good spot because I'm going to sail that thing off into turn 3, and I'm going to take the lead, and I'm out of here. Well, Dale's got a whole different idea. He's going to sail that thing on the bottom, and he's going to take the lead, and he's out of here. So we go into third turn, and Gordon, smart as he was, he said, these two knuckleheads are going to collide. So he checks up.
He's out.
And I go in, and Dale comes up, and he slams into me. And TV can never do some wrecks justice. I hit that wall so hard it knocked the breath. I thought I was dead. Knocked the breath out of him. I couldn't breathe. I broke 3 ribs. I was a mess. And I'll never forget. So we go home and come back over on Wednesday. And so I went to find Dale. I said, I've got to talk to him. So I said, what the hell, man? I said, what were you thinking? He said, what were you thinking? I said, well, I was thinking I was going to win that race. I said, what were you thinking? He said, I was thinking, don't you ever go on the outside of me. Hopefully you learned a lesson. And walked away.
That's harsh.
Damn.
But that's the way he was. No, listen, he would call me every year at Christmas. Every year, Christmas Eve. And I would just expect it. One year he didn't call me. I thought, well, maybe I missed a call. But anyway, so we get to Daytona, and I go up to him. I say, hey, buddy, did you call me Christmas Eve, or did I miss a call? He said, I don't have to call you every year. And walked away.
Oh, yes.
And just walked away.
That's the part. That's the Dale Earnhardt a lot of people don't know.
He was there. I mean, he could have said, oh, I'm sorry, I was busy, blah, blah, blah. But no, he looked at me and said, I don't have to call you every year.
So do you think that there was something more to that, or I mean, like
No, that was just
that's just him. That's just him on a bad day, maybe.
Yeah, he had this sort of part of him that could be as he could break you in half.
Callous,
could.
like cold and callous.
Oh, yeah.
Just unnecessarily rude.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, and
Like,
you
what'd
would
I
think,
do to do-
and
deserve
then you would
that?
think that's what you would say. What the hell did I do to him? I didn't do anything to him. We were at, so we were at Charlotte. And we were running really, really good. And he came over to me, and he put the RA and blah, 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 blah. Hey, how much right front spring you got in that car? I said, I got a 16. All right, you don't have. if I'd known you're going to lie to him, I wouldn't even ask you. I said, I got a 16. I got a 14 and a 16. Why? Yeah, I got a 3,000 and an 8. And anyway, he left. So we're a few weeks go by, and we're at Indianapolis, and he's running really good. So I said, well, I'm going, hey, buddy, and he's got on, he doesn't want anybody to know he couldn't see. He half glasses, looking at his practice sheet. And I sat down beside him on toolbox. I said, hey, buddy, y'all are running really good. I said, how much right front spring you got in your car? You know I can't tell you that. Is that all you wanted? I mean, like I was intruding.
Yeah.
Intruding.
Like some nerve to ask him
Out of
that.
here.
What made him a good friend then?
I don't know. There were just two Dales. I mean, there was the one you loved. My wife and he.
Tight.
I mean, my wife and he were tight. They got more. She got more pictures of him and her than they do of me and her. So she loved Dale, and she witnessed to Dale, and she put scriptures in his car, and they were really, really good friends. And Dale and I, it was hard to be friends. Long-term relationships.
All the time, yeah.
Yeah, when we were racing all the time.
Yeah.
If you beat me, you took meat off. You took bacon off my table.
Yeah.
Or you did something I didn't like, or and I think probably Neil and Dale were. That friendship probably lasted as long. And my brother Michael, he and Dale
tight.
Senior they were good friends.
Which still baffles me, by the way, because I can't think.
Well, look,
explain that.
Yeah, do that.
it's pretty easy. So, who was my biggest rivalry when I started? Richard Petty. Where did my brother live?
Richard Petty's.
Yeah. And who was my biggest rivalry as we went through my career?
Dale.
Dale. And where did Michael live?
Dale.
He was Dale's
With
best friend.
Oh,
and so,
man.
my brother was pretty smart. He's shrewd. They don't like DW, but they like me. I'll never forget, my brother called me one day and he said, I was sitting on the couch talking to Richard, and we're watching a race, and I was telling Richard what was going on, and Richard looked at me and said, boy, where in the hell did you learn about racing anyway? And he said, well, I learned everything I know about racing from my brother. And Richard looked at him and said, you don't know much, do you?
Oh, my gosh.
My goodness.
And it's so different. I mean, we didn't have motorhomes, and we had King Airs, and Dale wanted a jet, and he got a Lear jet. And I mean, we was always trying to one-up each other, and it was just the way it was. Driving that one car, he won't remember this, but we were at Texas, and I was driving the one car.
Oh, the one DEI car.
Yeah,
right.
the DEI car, the Pennzoil car. And we're going to an appearance. It's Sunday morning, and this one he was just starting the Cup. And we're going over there, and he's giving Junior hell about his setup. Because he's got a pair of 600s and a 2.5-inch bar or something in the front, something that unheard of to us. And he's telling him he don't know what he's doing. He'll get lapped, blah, 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 blah. And he is wearing him out. And I'm in the back sitting, he reached over, he says, will you please tell him we know what we're doing? And I said, no, I'm not going to tell him anything. You tell him. I'm not telling him anything. But that was a great, that really saved me.
You're talking about the ride. Set that up. Steve Park got injured.
Driving the one car, and that's the way Dale was. He would kick your butt one day and hug your neck the next. You just didn't know. And so when he called me, wanted me to drive that one car, first I thought, nah, I don't want to do that. That's no good. Because they were struggling, Felipe Lopez, and they were just getting DEI going, and they were buying old cars from different people, and they didn't have what they needed, and had some good engine people, but there was just a lot of loose ends. And but anyway, I thought about it, and I thought, yeah, that's probably the right thing for me to do, because I had just sold my team to Tim Beverly, and he would shut the team down while they did some rebuilding, and I was kind of didn't have anything really going on, and so it worked out really well for me. And it was the best thing that I ever did for our relationship, because we did get a chance to kind of mend some wounds and talk about some old times and things that had happened. And Dale paid me more than anybody had ever paid me before.
How many races did you do?
What did I do, 12 maybe? Yeah, 8 or 12.
And when you and Dale had chances to, you're having conversations with him that otherwise you wouldn't have. Would you go out to the farm? When did you find moments with Dale?
See, I worked at Garage Mahal. That was my job. I was a greeter at Garage Mahal.
All right.
That's what I said I did through the week anyway. When fans would come, I'd show them around. No, we just it was a kind of a fun time. because you're starting something new. A lot of new people. Every day, truckloads of parts and pieces and equipment was being unloaded, and the floors were shiny, and everything was brand new, and the rails up to his office were heated, and the
heated rails.
the elevator where he put his car when nobody there. It was just getting the deer. I mean, just a lot of fun to hang out with him and ride around the back there where the pond was, and I don't know. It was kind of fun, and like I said, he paid me well. I was hurting because I'd spent all my money on that race team that I'd finally gotten out of, and so I needed the opportunity to kind of revitalize my career a little bit and put a little money in the bank, and Dale did all that for me. And he and Ty Norton, they both said if things had been a little bit different and things had worked out, I would have stayed there. Park would have come back, and he would have drove the Pennzoil car, and I would have probably driven the Napa car. But it just the timing wasn't right.
Yeah.
Napa wasn't quite ready for Cup. They came along with Michael later on.
That's right.
And they were with Hornaday, but just timing was a little bit wrong right there. So I ended up driving a damn Kmart car.
Yeah.
That's right. So this would have been about, what, 96, 97, something like
No,
that?
this would have been 1998, 99.
98.
Yeah,
So
98, 99.
so you were then.
I was racing in an AC Delco car.
That's right.
Yeah.
And
I remember.
so y'all were sort of teammates.
Well,
Yeah.
we were teammates at one time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I'll never forget, he drove Ed Whitaker's car. I think he saw him Poe at Bristol,
Yes.
and maybe went to Rockingham.
Yes.
And I went over to Dale, and I said, Dale, what's your plan for Dale Jr.? He said, what do you want to know for? I said, I'm going to try to hire him. He said, you stay away from him.
Really?
He said, you'll pay him too damn much money. He said, I won't be able to compete with you. He said, you stay away from him. I got plans for him.
If I'm you, I don't know whether that's a compliment or like you'll pay him too much money because like.
Well, I didn't know either.
What are you trying to get?
All I know is he said, you stay away from him. I got plans for him.
Yeah.
And I'll never forget, he called me and said, I just signed a $10 million deal for Dale to drive the Budweiser car. So that's a pretty good deal.
Yeah, that was the biggest one at the time. I remember my driving lesson from DW happened at Martinsville. He was driving. I was running the Cup Series rookie year.
He had hit everything but the pace car, by the way.
I was having a wild one. The whole year was a learning experience.
This is your rookie year, I assume,
Yeah.
right? Yeah.
I caught Darrell. We're both a lap down or two, and I'm not running great. Darrell's not running great, and I caught him and bumped him. As soon as I got to him, I bumped him up the track in turn 1 and 2, I think, and in turn 3 and 4, he had me up backwards. And I was like, I should have known better. I should have known that was going to happen. DW is like, I ain't in a real good mood.
No,
so
I wasn't having the best day.
Yeah.
When I go to Martinsville, I don't have a good day. There's something wrong.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
I bet.
that was kind of my go-to track.
I was like, man, I kind of knew that was coming, and I got spun out by Darrell Waltrip. That's like a rite of passage.
Yeah.
I was going to say, of all people that might take that as kind of a cool thing, you would be the one that's like, hey, I just got it.
Oh, no, but he got the raft of his dad a few times, too. What about when we went to Japan?
Oh, that's an infamous moment.
Yeah,
Tell
and
it.
And the IROC race at Michigan.
Oh, yeah.
No, wait a second. All right, go back to Dre. Do you have vantage points? I've only heard Dale tell these stories. I've only heard Dale talk about the shoe coming at him. Do you have it?
Did you know?
Insight?
Did you know after Japan? So you drove the Yates car.
Yates car, yeah.
Daddy and me were pitted side by side, and he's in Japan going through the motions.
Yeah.
Right. They send some heavy old junk car.
Yeah.
And he's just like, I show up. I'm Dale Earnhardt. I do the Dale Earnhardt thing, and I go home.
Yeah.
The 24 and the 31, they got their nice stuff, and they're out there running up front. I had this car, and I'm running my guts out, right? It's a race.
Yeah.
So it's a win.
Yeah.
Remember, like you said.
Yeah.
And come down to the end, like a 10 laps to go, and Dad's got a set of tires in his pit, and I don't. Tony Jr. looks over at Richard and them and said, y'all coming? And they're like, nope. He said, well, I'm going to borrow them tires if you don't mind. I'm coming. They said, yeah, take them. I come down pit road, put my tires on, come back out. I line up about 2 or 3 spots behind Daddy, and I'm like trying to get through as many cars as I can when the green flag comes out. We come off turn 4, and Dad's on my right rear. I'm passing him. And I'm thinking, surely I got to open the throttle up. I got to get the throttle down, but I can't because he's right here. he's got to let me go, or we're both going to go down this straightaway slow as hell, side drafting each other. So I just gassed it and come up the track and slid over his headlight up onto the grill of his car, and he shoved me all the way down the straightaway and had the rear tires off the ground and the thing driving like a forklift until we got to the flag stand. He let me go, and I went on and passed a couple more cars, and we get done, and I'm like, man, this is great. I finished like 6th or something.
Yeah.
And you hadn't even been a Cup driver at that point.
Yeah.
You're getting a race with these guys.
I beat Daddy, which is even better.
Yeah.
And I'm happy. And
Yeah.
I don't think that's just racing.
Yeah.
Right? Not a big deal. I go into those little trailers they had us sitting in.
Yeah.
Me and him sharing a trailer together,
Yeah.
these little rentals. I sit down, and I'm taking my stuff off. He comes in, and I look up, and I'm like, he don't look like he wants to talk. So I get back.
Could tell.
I am sitting there, and he sits down and starts taking his shoe off, and just at the moment that I bent down to untie my shoe, his shoe went right over my head.
Oh my God.
Fast.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, he slung that
Yeah.
damn thing. If
Yeah.
it had hit me,
Yeah.
it would have hurt.
It'll hurt.
And never said a word.
Yeah.
Somebody cracks the door open and goes, "Hey, Junior, they want to interview you out here." I'm like, "That's perfect." I got up out of there as fast as I
I'm
could.
out of here. Yeah.
I never had a problem with him on the racetrack. Well, I had a couple where he was like, "Hey, tell Junior to stop doing X,
Oh
Y,
yeah,
and
yeah,
Z."
yeah, yeah.
We went to Bristol. You'll love this because I'm the only one that could do this. We went to Bristol, and he comes up to me, and he's starting behind me and Elliott Sadler. He's like, "Hey, you boys, Elliott's young, new, I'm new, rookie year." He goes, "You guys, it's a long race now, Bristol. You got to be patient, got to be calm. You got good cars. Y'all do good if you're patient. This track will eat you up." First corner, he dumps the Elliott. He runs in the back of him, dumps him into me. Me and Elliott crash. I tore up. I am tore up.
Oh no.
I'm behind the wall for 50 laps, come out with no damn fenders. And the first time I see him coming by, he's lapping me, and I just turned left and drug the whole left front tire of my car down the right side of his as he's going by. Because I seen him do that.
Yeah.
Right?
Oh yeah.
He done that a million times to people. And so he got a little pissed off about that. But I never have seen that side of him. I seen the I'm mad at you because you didn't do your homework.
Yeah.
But I never met the mean Earnhardt race car driver like I'm old
Yeah.
you're
Yeah.
taking food off my table. But in that moment, I think in Japan, I kind of got a glimpse of what you guys dealt with every single week.
Oh yeah. Well, Dale had a philosophy. It's pretty simple. You hit me once, I'm going to hit you twice.
Yeah.
That was the way he raced. But that's the way his dad was. His dad was rough on those dirt tracks, and when Dale grew up on those dirt tracks, he was driving Robert G's car over here at Concord, and I had a little hot rod shop called Waltrip Racing Center over in Franklin, and so I put my name on Robert's car for Dale to drive at Waltrip Racing Center. We go over there, and Dale on the last lap going into turn one, he dumps like Billy Scott or Hayward Ply or somebody. He just dumps them and spins them out, and he comes around, he wins the race. We're all on the track, man, yeah, we won the race, right, man, we're great. And we're coming down where the car is, and someone to the other direction is the guy team that he dumped.
Yeah.
And they are hot, and they're getting ready for some action. We're gonna be some fight right on the front straightaway. I'm running down the road, I said, whoa, and I turn around, I said, I'm getting in my car, I'm getting the hell out of here.
Yeah.
Because they were not happy.
Yeah.
But it was interesting to me to watch how Dale operated, because he knew what he was doing. It wasn't like it was an accident. He knew what he was doing, and he would do it anyway. He couldn't help himself. I mean, there was something about that helmet and that image and that intimidator, and he had to live up to that, and he did.
Yeah.
He did a lot.
I still can put myself in the room and him coming in, and when I hear
we had a
pissed off Dale
13-hour plane ride home for us to get over it.
Oh, I can feel the anxiety in that. That would be awful.
It was interesting.
Yeah, well,
I knew, though, the only thing, but think about this, though, Mike, the one thing I knew, though, is that somewhere in that angry man was a proud dad.
Yeah.
Even though I knew he was so angry, I knew in a couple days he was going to look back and go, That's my son. You know,
Yeah.
that was pretty. You know, he.
Yeah.
I like that style. I drove him the way he drives everybody
Yeah,
else.
yeah.
You know what I mean?
But you're assuming that because he never showed it to you, did he?
Well, yeah.
I mean, he knew about you. DW knew about the plans that Dale had for you before you ever knew the plans. I mean,
Yeah.
you didn't get that information until you walked in and saw that your name on the car.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know?
Well, yeah. But you know, the thing I think about Dale, and I think about him, it's like he's still here.
Yeah.
I mean, every day or
Right.
something that comes up is like, well, what do you think Dale would think about that? I think Dale would probably be running NASCAR if he was still here, but who knows? But we were at Indianapolis. I'll tell you this quick story. We were at Indianapolis. We're going to go to St. Elmo's for dinner. And I'm driving. He's over here, and just he and I in a car. We get to the exit, get to the street there, and you can't turn left. It's blocked. And I start to go. He said, where are you going? I said, well, I can't go through there. It's blocked. He said, just go between those two. You can get through there. Get through there. So I said, all right. So and so we're going down the street, and a light up is getting ready to change. He said, what are you slowing down for? Don't slow down. You can make that light. You can make that light. So I said, okay, all right. So I go through the light. What are you doing in this lane? Get over in that lane over there. Move over there. I said, I pulled the car. I said, that's it. I've had it. You drive. I said, I'm tired of you telling me where to go, what to do, how to do it. I said, you drive. He said, well, just calm down. It's just trying to help you. And I think in his mind, he always felt like he was just trying to help you. He had an idea about how things were supposed to be. And if they weren't that way, then that wasn't the right way. So he was a hard guy to get along with. But he had a big heart, and he was down inside of him there was another Dale.
Yeah.
But he didn't let that Dale out very often. He didn't want nobody to see that Dale. But there was a Dale inside of him that was totally different than one you saw on the racetrack.
Yeah.
And he knows.
Yeah. All right, DW. I hate to wrap this up.
Are we done? Oh,
we
man.
are done for this trip. You're going to come back.
We have to have him back. Hold
we
on.
only got 30%
Yeah.
of the whole story, but we'd love to have you come back.
Yeah.
This has meant a lot to me.
Yeah.
For you to make this effort to come all the way here to sit down and talk to us, and I want you to know that there's a lot of people that are going to listen to this show on podcast form and watch it on TV that are going to love this.
Oh, I
and
hope so.
They are going to be so happy to hear from you and hear these stories. So thank you.
Yeah.
You mean the world to us. It's so great to see you. You'll have to tell Stevie that we missed her.
Yeah.
We love her. And enjoy your ride home. Hope it's a safe one.
Yep.
And we'll see you again soon.
Yeah, man. Well, you do a great job. I watch this show quite often because you have all my buddies on. And I always like to see if they're going to mention me or not.
Well, they do. There's always a DW story in
they
there.
do. But anyway, yeah, thank you for letting me be on today.
Absolutely, sir. Darrell Waltrip on the Dale Jr. Download.